Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. We've already taken the roll call. So we're moving on to number 2, action items. Would someone please read the motion? Sure, please.
I move that the employment of staff as presented be approved.
Second.
Any discussion, any questions? Go ahead, Kenzie.
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Next on the agenda, resignation of staff. Could someone read the motion, please?
I move that the resignation of staff as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion, questions? Kenzie?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. Next is retirement of staff.
I move that the retirement of staff as presented be approved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Kenzie?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Next is D, transfer of staff.
I move that the transfer of staff as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion or questions? Kenzie?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Next is the is E, Southwest Stadium entrance.
I move that Northeast Asphalt Incorporated be awarded the bid for the stadium entrance and asphalt project at Southwest High School in the amount of $641,475 as presented be approved.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Any discussion? Okay, Kenzie?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. Next, we're moving on to F, Facility Master Planning Task Force recommendations. Before we kind of delve into that, I'm going to just ask Vicki if there's anything she would like to kind of tee off with.
Yeah, I included a memo along with this meeting that highlights how we ended up in this position in the first place. And it all begins with the need to address an impending budget deficit. So not unlike other school districts in the state of Wisconsin, we are facing a reduction in enrollment and projected budget deficit that is due to many factors, including inflation, revenue limits, and a lack of state funding that's kept up with costs of living. District administration, if you've followed our budget over the years, district administration and the Board of Education have been good stewards of the finances. Yet in 24-25 school year, next August, we are facing a pretty substantial budget deficit, estimated at right now around $20 million. We've been able to address a $36 million deficit over the past year. And I've been proud to report to the public and to the Board of Education over the past year our efforts to reduce, including reducing the number of administrators, downgrading administrative positions, decreasing other staffing positions through attrition, reduction in contracted services, and modification to employee health insurance, just to name a few. But the reality is we are facing the $20 million. And there are multiple ways to address that. We propose to the Board of Education a two-prong approach, looking at the things that I had just mentioned and continue to look in those areas, but also to look at facilities. We embarked in this process with looking at the facilities over 2 years ago. And the culmination of that work was presented to the Board of Education on May 8th. And now it's time to start looking at that recommendation and giving us some direction. The sooner we have direction, the better. We are bound by state law for contracts for administrators and teachers. So the sooner we're able to know if we have to make reductions in those areas, the better. But we also have to take a look at reducing enrollment. And our proposal is that we put funding towards staffing and programming rather than facilities. So with that, I leave it to the board to make some difficult decisions.
Thank you, Vicki. Okay, so we're gonna get underway here. Go ahead, James.
Madam Chair, can we suspend rules for about 5 minutes? Just have a conversation about the proceedings tonight and how we'll navigate the conversation.
I would, yes.
What are we suspending the rules to do? If we're just talking about. We wouldn't need to because it's
So I have a series of resolutions and I don't want to occupy or direct the conversation without first having a quick conversation about whether or not that's acceptable to the board. And if it would behoove us to put the resolution titles or something on the screen so that everyone can see them, so that the conversations regarding the resolutions focus on that resolution, because you know that there may be a second or third resolution that might address your particular question or your objection. So if everyone feels comfortable with that, and if anyone wants to contribute anything to that list, if we can start there.
I would allow that, if everyone else is okay. That's a good starting point.
Okay.
Okay.
Does anyone else have prepared motions? I don't. But if anyone does, should they all go up to, right? Because they could be duplicative, they could be contradictory, right?
Okay.
So probably whoever has one would also.
Yeah, my point exactly. Yeah. Okay, so I'll hand these out and then Kenzie, I'll give you the title so that we can put them on the screen.
May I ask a procedural question while he's doing that?
Sure.
So are we going to consider one motion and vote on it, amend it if necessary, and vote on it before we go to the second? Or are you telling us we're gonna all put a whole bunch of motions up first? I don't care. Just tell me what I'm gonna do.
Let me have a look first.
So it's go to the last one. So for,
Just a second. Kinsey, is there any way to make that larger? So that people can see it? There. Thank you. So if you can just kind of give everyone a moment to read it and then keep scrolling through so that everyone,
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the most important thing right now is just to understand the titling and kind of what it's about. And then I would like to take a moment because based on open meeting laws, right, this is the first time board members have seen my particular resolutions. So I think there is some time required. I can provide a public read. But then if we want to take a few moments to let everyone kind of digest the information because it's important. And then, yeah, I agree that we should, as I read it, make sure that the public can follow. Is that fair?
I think it would be helpful to read them into the record, but I think we should do that one at a time. So would everyone be comfortable with James reading the first one into the record while people have a chance to sort of either listen or read it up on the screen while actually as the board reads it together as well? Is that okay with everyone? Okay, go ahead.
Green Bay Area Public School District Board Resolution relating to the Facility Master Planning Task Force recommendations pertaining to community impact of repurposing schools for 4K through 8 facilities and proposed school boundary changes. Whereas it is the mission of the Green Bay Area Public School District to educate all students to be college, career, and community ready, inspired to succeed in our diverse world, and in an effort to achieve that mission, the district offers a variety of programming to meet the need of all students. And whereas Wisconsin Statute 120.1, Section 1 and 12.44, Section 2 authorize the Green Bay Area Public School District Board of Education to have the possession, care, control, and management of the property and affairs of the school district. And whereas due to factors of the state of Wisconsin failing to fully fund public education and declining enrollment, the Green Bay Area Public School District projects a $20 million operating deficit for the 24-25 school year. And whereas any significant reduction in workforce required to address the impending budget deficit without associated school consolidations will create negative impacts across the district and jeopardize the Green Bay Area Public School District's ability to execute its mission. And whereas in order to address the district's impending budget deficit and the decrease in student enrollment, the Board of Education has determined to take action based on the recommendations of the Facility Master Planning Committee.
James, can I just interrupt you a second? Which one are you reading right now?
Sorry, the last in the order.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Apologize.
Yep. Okay, proceed.
Whereas the Facility Master Planning Committee proposal to transition Langlade Elementary School, McAuliffe Elementary School, and Franklin Middle School to buildings for grades 4K through 8 creates a need to significantly alter current boundaries across the district. And whereas the impacts of such proposal to communities, educational pathways, transportation, and student safety of the potential boundary changes have not yet been studied. And whereas the Board of Education has not been provided with sufficient information to determine if these proposed changes meet the criteria established in board guidance as it pertains to equitable distribution of investments and minimizing change to students, families, and district operations. And whereas Facility Master Planning Task Force did not have the means nor the necessary data to evolve their proposed changes to ensure alignment with the district's commitment to equity. And whereas the proposal to transition these schools to 4K through 8 facility significantly alters the impacted schools' populations and therefore their opportunities to continue in their desired educational pathways. Now, Therefore, be it resolved that the Green Bay Area Public School District is directed to initiate the necessary activities to assess the impact to community, educational pathways, and student safety of the proposed transition of Langlade Elementary School, McAuliffe Elementary School, and Franklin Middle School to 4K through 8 facilities, including all related investments and closings that enable the transitions. The goal of the assessment should ensure that the comprehensive set of investments and divestments across the various communities are equitable. That boundary changes associated with the proposed transition to 4K through 8 facilities minimize change for student, families, and district operations when possible. All board-approved educational pathways remain intact. The resulting school populations are equally or more diversely integrated than present populations, and transportation services are not negatively impacted. The assessment activities should include, but are not limited to, engaging a reputable third party to study the community impact of the school closures and the subsequent relocation of student populations proposed by the Facility Master Planning Task Force. Organizing a task force representative of the impacted communities to evaluate the impact study and use its findings to evolve the task force recommendations and adjust boundaries, and create a transition plan for students impacted by changes to educational pathways. Recommendations from the Facility Master Planning Task Force impacted by the transition of the 4K through 8 schools and subjected to the aforementioned assessments include closure of Elmore Elementary, closure of Beaumont Elementary, closure of Doty Elementary, closure of Washington Middle School, modification of McAuliffe Elementary, modification of Langlade Elementary, modification of Webster Elementary, closure of Leonardo da Vinci School, all associated boundaries that redirect students to new schools based on the closures and modifications, all associated boundary changes that shift high school students west. So for the public, this is not a resolution that addresses in a comprehensive manner the entire facility recommendations. So that's why there are 3 other proposals to be read into the record. So at this point, do you want to address this and have a debate here, or do you want to continue to read through the resolutions?
I will throw that out to everyone else. Would you, do you think it would be helpful to read them all? And have a fuller picture, I think, of what is being proposed. Does that feel helpful? I feel like that's helpful. Okay, then I would ask you to keep going. Sorry, go ahead, Lynn.
Then we're making the assumption that these 4 resolutions are the board's work tonight.
Well, we're considering them. Yeah.
No, I absolutely not, right? These are my approach to this evening, and I wanted to put resolutions out there, to give us a context for the debate, right? Because we have to make a motion, this action. But I absolutely entertain any other motions or resolutions that any board member may, and modifications to these resolutions can be discussed as well.
I think once they're read into the record, we should go back and take them in order.
And take them as motions,
Yes, they could be.
which will be
definitely-
seconded and discussed.
And voted on, yes. All right,
If other people have prepared motions, they should be able to say them up front too, so we have a
yeah,
list.
yeah. And I just want to tell everyone in the room and anyone might be watching at home that we did, I did ask everyone on the board to offer whatever ideas and direction that they might have. So everyone has had an equal opportunity to partake in this process. Go ahead, Brian.
And those also be, it's really loud.
Yeah.
Those will also be taking place today, that we can do it on the floor as well, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, to continue, the next one is the next one from the back of the packet. I apologize, they were assembled in the reverse order.
Okay.
And it is a Green Bay area Public School District Board resolution related to the Facility Master Planning Task Force recommendations pertaining to creating a referendum question. So the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 contextual whereas clauses are the same across all resolutions because the resolutions are meant to stand alone. But if everyone would agree, I don't want to reread everything.
Yeah, please proceed.
Thank you. Whereas this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 statement down, whereas several neighborhood elementary schools on the west side of the Green Bay Area Public School District are operating at well below optimal enrollment levels. And whereas Kennedy Elementary School site is amenable to the construction of a new elementary school with capacity enough to enable relocating the student populations of multiple low enrollment elementary schools to a single modern facility. And whereas the Facility Master Planning Task Force recommends secured entry updates to several Green Bay area public schools to better control visitor access and improve overall security of those schools. And whereas the West High School is operating at 60% capacity and can be modified to accommodate a distinct educational environment for the project-based learning program of the John Dewey Academy of Learning. And whereas the Facility Master Planning Task Force recommends closing the Green Bay Area School District Office Building. And whereas the facility assessments performed by ATS&R prioritize upcoming investments in facility infrastructure, therefore, now there be it resolved that the Green Bay Area Public School District is directed to initiate all necessary activities required to prepare a proposed capital referendum question and present the resulting project list, capital requirements, and all other pertinent information on or before 11/1/2023, such that the board can approve a capital referendum question as follows. Build a new elementary school on the site of Kennedy Elementary to enable, upon its completion, the district to consolidate the student populations of selected West Side elementary schools. Implement the recommended security upgrades at the following schools: Southwest High School, Lombardi Middle School, East High School, Preble High School, Edison Middle School, Eisenhower Elementary School, and Wilder Elementary School. Modify West High School to create an accessible district administration space to receive select district administration staff and/or create a distinct educational environment for the John Dewey Academy of Learning Charter School. Address timely priority facility issues as recommended by the Master Facility Planning Committee. The next resolution is, apologize. Is related to the Facility Master Planning Task Force recommendations pertaining to Wickriock Elementary School. Starting at the 6th whereas statement, whereas Wickriock Elementary School continues to operate at or about 60% capacity. And whereas the environmental education programming may be transferable to Red Smith Community School 4K through 8 for grades 4K through 5. And whereas Wickriock Elementary School's location requires all students to be transported to school, thus relocation of the student population to Red Smith Community School 4K through 8 minimizes change to the impacted community. And whereas Wickriock Elementary feeds into Red Smith Community School 4K through 8 for grades 6 through 8. And whereas the entirety of the student population of Wickriock Elementary can be relocated to Red Smith Community School without modification. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Green Bay Area Public School District is directed to initiate planning activities to effectuate the closing of Wickriock Elementary School, relocate that student population to Red Smith Community School 4K through 8, and explore the viability of moving the environmental programming to Red Smith Community School 4K through 8 for grades 4K through 5 for the 24-25 school year, and present the plan for board approval on or before 11/1/2023. Revising transportation plans to ensure safe and timely transit to and from school for all students by bus. documenting the necessary boundary changes, determining the feasibility of providing equivalent environmental education programming at Red Smith Community School, and creating a detailed list of non-referendum dependent projects and their capital requirements to address physical plant and educational adequacy concerns at Red Smith Community School. The last resolution I have to submit this evening. Starting on the 6th whereas statement, whereas Tank Elementary School is operating at or below 50% utilization. And whereas the entirety of the Tank Elementary School population can be added to Fort Howard Elementary School without modification. And whereas the close proximity of the two schools minimize change for the impacted communities. And whereas the funding required to improve the Fort Howard School facility and its educational adequacy score will not require funding through the passage of a facilities referendum. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Green Bay Area Public School District is directed to initiate planning activities to effectuate the closure of Tank Elementary School and make necessary updates to Fort Howard Elementary School in time to relocate the student population from Tank Elementary School to Fort Howard for the 24-25 school year and present the plan for board approval on or before 11/1 of 2023. Planning activities include, but are not limited to revising transportation and safety plans to ensure safe and timely transit to and from school for all students by bus, bike, or on foot. Documenting the necessary boundary changes, creating a detailed list of projects and their capital requirements to address physical plant and educational adequacy concerns at Fort Howard Elementary School. Confirming that all services rendered at Tank Elementary School exist or can be offered at Fort Howard Elementary School.
Okay. Has everyone had a chance to at least have a look at this now? I think we should probably then, I don't know what order you'd like to take them in.
Shouldn't we, are we gonna look at if anyone else has a motion? And we should be able to see what, I mean, I don't think that, I think these are all very valid motions and resolutions, but I don't know why they should be looked
Absolutely.
at separately.
Of
So, and
course.
I did come up with a short one that I emailed to Kinsey, but I think Nancy had one before I did.
Okay, so let's do Andrew and then Nancy.
Okay, so mine is very. Yeah, mine is very simple. I'll just go back to my emails and read it word for word. Be it resolved that the Green Bay Area Public School District is directed to initiate planning activities towards closing the district office building and moving central offices to other buildings where space is available.
Okay. Nancy?
Okay, mine says, whereas we are working to right-size our district fiscally to avoid a looming $20 million deficit, and whereas salary and benefits constitute 80% of our operating budget, and whereas we have all been repeatedly asked by the public to consider right-sizing our administrative leadership team along with the right-sizing of our facilities. Therefore, I move that we instruct our new superintendent, Dr. Claude Tiller, to make as one of his first priorities a review of the size and structure of our administrative leadership team with a plan to downsize if appropriate.
Okay. Do you have that? And can, okay, that's fine. Okay, so anybody else have anything else that they'd like to add?
I actually have one.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Just gotta find it. The board has not made a formal decision or vote on the closure of Doty School. That said, we know that the school is located 0.2 miles from the De Pere city limits. It is located 1 mile from Langlade School. Langlade School is more centrally located in Alloway. Doty has a capacity of 400 students. It has 263 students. A total of 106 of those students travel from the village of Bellevue. If these students were to attend a closer school, the number of students at Doty would be 157 students from the village of Alloway. Therefore, in my mind, it is about 39.3% of its capacity. Those Bellevue students are all located closer to Webster, Eisenhower, and Langlade. All the kids from Bellevue will eventually go to Green Bay East. Doty is a feeder school to Green Bay Southwest. For Langlade School, if you live south of Highway 172 in Alloway, you go to Southwest. If you live on the north side, you go to East. Eisenhower feeds into Green Bay East, Webster feeds into Green Bay East, and offers the Fine Arts program. We will soon impanel new task force teams that address equity, programming, boundary, and transportation issues. But as they undertake this work, it will be a very heavy load to lift to keep Doty open, in my mind. Therefore, I move that we instruct the staff to study these boundary issues with the ultimate plan to close.
Point of
Right.
information, please.
Yes.
She has paper copies of this for us. I'd like to have one.
Andrew,
you
would you
have-
like me to print off copies of yours?
Do you have the other copies of the other one that you made? Okay.
And another point of information, does James have an extra copy for our other student council member?
Oh. By the way, while we're doing this, I want to just welcome our student reps to the table. I'm sorry I didn't do that at the beginning. Oh, thank you. There you go. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Is this also the, on that, is this also the opportunity where if we have just general ideas that we'd like to be shared, where they may not be in the form of a resolution, but for input on it as well, or would you like that at different points, or?
Why don't you go ahead and proceed. I
think there's a couple. Try not to get too close to where it's doing that. Is it something I can do on my side here? Okay, is that better? Okay. There's a couple of thoughts I just want to bring up with this when we're looking specifically at the K-8 part of it, which I brought up with other people to kind of keep in mind with this. If we're looking at a geographic area of one of our neighborhood schools, and that's really bothering me. The example would be just looking at the floor, our floor tiles, if you have a 1 square foot on there, and that's where our neighborhood scares, the geographic area is. By looking at these larger elementary schools or even the K-8 schools, we've enlarged that geographic spot. Now, I recognize that takes away from some of the neighborhood schools, but that also gives us the opportunity to increase the amount of mobility for students within that geographic area. So if a student would be at one elementary school and for some reason their family situations result in them moving to a different area, or if we have insecure housing, lots of issues that happen with our students, we have a significant transient population with it. That'll allow the students to stay within a larger spot to stay in the same school. I don't know if I'm making sense to the board with that. I can draw a picture
No, it's okay.
here's a square, 3 by 3 square above it, it gets
So
bigger footprint.
basically what you're talking about is our district has a very, very significant mobility.
It would keep the
issue.
stability of keeping students in the same school at that area. That also gives us an opportunity to work with our community partners to look at community school models with it, to make sure that we have programming that can, and build on the programming that our students need, whether it's mental health care, whether it's a dental clinic, whatever is specific with those, while larger, those community schools in there. So I think that's a valid gain while we're in obviously a tough situation, but some points to take into consideration where we're looking at these larger elementary schools or the K-8 model. Another thing that I want to point out is the possibility of some of our buildings are not adequately set up for students that are either medically fragile, that are receiving ID services, or autism focus with that. In particular, I'm talking about rooms where staff are able to toilet the students appropriately, where we're able to provide transitional services for them as they age out, either 18 or 21 years old, where we're required, and it's the right thing to do, to provide those services. I would like for the board to just keep in the back of their mind the possibility of using one of the schools that we're looking at repurposing as an ID specific building where we still providing services within our other schools if the parents choose that. But I'm saying our medically fragile students, where we have a lot of medical services being provided and where we work a lot with our transition services for getting them prepared for the community. Some schools have little apartments set up, so if we were to look at one of the buildings with that, partnering with our other schools to make sure we can provide those services. Because sometimes within our classrooms, we do the best we can with our buildings, but it's not set up. It just isn't set up right for what we need to do to provide our students the best education possible. So I'd just like for the board to consider that idea as well with it. Those are the two things I have. I have another one, which I'll add later, so.
I think that modern schools do, newly built schools take those issues into consideration. Like Baird has dedicated space. Go ahead.
When I'm talking about specifically our medically fragile students, this is students that the least restrictive environment for them and to provide the best opportunity for programming for them is in a dedicated building. I'll just use similar programming to what Civil Hop offers. And Green Bay is not part of the Civil Hop consortium or the group of Brown County schools that participate in that. So we can provide those life skills, the skills that they are in need of, and make sure that we have the proper facilities for them. We do a good job. I mean, we're trying our best, but average age of the building is 70 years old. And when you're working with a lot of the functions that they're focusing on, you cannot do it in some of the buildings and do it justice. So.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Andrew.
Just to add on to what Brian's saying, and I believe we've talked about this, I think this characterizes it adequately. We're talking about an option for families. So would there be, if a child with higher needs, if what the family was looking for and through the IEP process, if that was to be as integrated as possible and get those benefits that stays. At the same time, there are people, I mean, it's anecdotal evidence, but people have physically moved out of Green Bay District to be able to get into Civil Hop. And so obviously there are some families who think that's a great model. And so I think there's some, this would be a time when you have, then we would be able to offer an option that people don't have to leave to get. We would have it here.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
We are lucky in this, when I say our community, I mean the Brown County area, to have the jewel that Civil Hop is, and to provide that access for families in communities that are serviced by it. We can replicate that within the Green Bay School District. And it's definitely not a competition thing or anything like that, but it is a need of our students that I think can be met. And this is, often I've said, this is a once in a generation opportunity for us to really do good things with this. It's going to be painful. Obviously, we're looking at a budget deficit, but as we're restructuring and as we're looking at this to really improve our offerings for our students here. So.
Thank you. Go ahead, Lynn.
Can I ask Brian 2 quick questions, please, just for clarity? You mentioned about preparing students to go out into the community. What would be the age level that you're thinking of for this?
I'm going to speak very vaguely because this is more my job and I'm putting 2 different hats on. We're required either up to the age of 18 or 21 years old by federal law with the students that we would be focusing on. So that's not a board policy, that's special education law and making sure that they have the least restrictive environment on there. So did that answer your question?
No, my question is what age students are we talking about? A total, from this to this?
Through our providing of an education. So if it's through 18 or through 21, starting at 4K.
No, no.
My second question is, do you have a particular school in mind?
Yes. I think that there's unique opportunities within some of the schools on the west side as far as what community services are in the same area and looking at the structural setup of it. It would be improper for me to say it, not having talked with anyone else on it. But I think that there are some elementary schools that I think we could look into that would also help provide those transition services with community partners that already work with our students in that area.
Okay. All right, James.
So Ryan and everyone else, if those are items that you're passionate about and want evaluated, I recommend that as we debate the resolutions, if you find a place to codify them in the resolution, please feel comfortable modifying them, because especially in the assessment of the K-8 program, that assessment, I had envisioned it as being as holistic as possible, right? So please feel free to amend.
Brian, would you be minimal to adding that item?
I'm always more than happy to amend a motion, but James, what I would like to do is you're the creator of these resolutions and where you see that they would fit in through conversation on this. Because you've seen, this is your body of work. So I want to make sure that it kind of stays with the same purpose on that. So if you're okay with that, if we are giving you ideas where you think it would be a good spot to fit in with the grand scheme, and we can add that and vote them up or down as they come through.
Okay. Go ahead, Lynn.
So I just want to be clear about this. So we have James's 4 resolutions, and then we have something by Andrew. I think 2 things by Nancy and 2 by Brian. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more. Are we trying to meld all of this into this? No, we're not. Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, James.
Having said that, Nancy, I think the motion that you put together, that is the task force evaluation of those boundaries around the Langlade Doty, would fit into, so if you don't have an issue, I think, or if we could retire that motion, appreciate it.
Whereas the other thing that you offered, the other motion, I feel like that's a standalone.
Yeah,
Okay, all right,
100%.
okay,
I don't know if he agrees.
okay. I'm sorry, Andrew, did you have,
I can wait.
okay. Brian,
The other idea that I would like to propose or throw out there in some capacity is us evaluating the possibility of a K-8 school on either the Washington grounds of knocking down Washington and rebuilding on that spot, or looking at a K-8 school at Webster Elementary's location. We've had a lot of people bringing up concerns about the availability of different programming and making sure that our students have that opportunity. I fully recognize the decrease in enrollment at Washington. I've said informally with other people. When I was a teacher at Washington, we had over 1,000 students, and the enrollment is at 550 now from the number I've seen. It is part of the general picture that we have seen of declining enrollment throughout the state. So I would just like to kind of throw that idea out as well, of looking into either a K-8 on the site of Webster because of the green space and just the ease of building there. And a continuing to east and same parts of that, or at Washington. And I don't know where that would fit in. So
Would people be interested in considering taking down part of Washington, making it a K-8 that feeds into East with the fine arts pathway starting there and going to East? I'd like to talk about that. Go ahead, James.
So in the first resolution, that kind of addresses the amount of change on the east side. There, the plan and the assessment, established three things, right? Have a third party through the equity study, then have a representative task force evolve the current plans, using that study as input, right? So I say that because the spirit and the intent of that is to allow that task force to do exactly what you just said, right? Modify the plan, saying that if it is deemed inequitable, to start doing all the building on the perimeter, look for maybe Webster's the right place, maybe Washington is the right place, but there may be other, sites that we could cite a K-8. So I just want to know if would you appreciate me making the motion more explicit, or do you want yours to stand alone?
I think it would fit in there with the specific details of a K-8 either at Washington or on the Webster location. If there's a way you can tie that in and if it fits, I'm going to kind of defer to you, James, on that. I would like that kind of on the record as a considering option with it, recognizing the fact that there is still, I'm going to guess about 1.5 miles of distance from Washington to Webster, and that the concerns that have been brought up, it still impacts a community if the Washington area, if it is not feasible, and if the logistics of building a school at Webster, just because of the green space and the other parts of that, if it makes more sense, I want both those options out there. We've invested a lot in the auditorium at Washington. It will bring in students. We built a beautiful brand new building at Baird, which has gotten rave reviews from the community and has served our population well. I think that this is, once again, an opportunity for us to make a generational change here and make sure that we are providing the best opportunity for our students. And just as I mentioned before with the K-8 school, looking at it as a community school and making sure that those resources are available that are specifically tailored to the building's community that they're in. So it's a community school model, which I've talked about, and you've all heard me many, many times talk about it. So I think it's an opportunity for us.
Okay. Andrew, please.
So as I reread this and I see that the assessment activities should include organizing a task force representative of the impacted communities so key phrase, representative of the impacted communities, and use findings to evolve the task force recommendations. I feel pretty good about that. It means that additional voices that may not have been heard in the initial task force process. Not that I would have subtracted a single person from the task force, nor do I have any issues with the hard work that the task force put in. I think they were all great, and I think there were maybe some voices that were missing. So the only concern I have about this is if I'm still a little worried that if I vote for this motion because I like the fact that a new task force would be able to evolve and recommend back changes, is that I'm still voting for this list of, I'm still on some level, I'm voting for something that has all of these closures in them, right? I mean, although it's not directive language. Right. It's not directive language, and I get that. But I also get that I'm voting for a whole bunch of language in a clause that I'm probably not okay with. And I don't know what to do about that yet. I mean, the motion is just as valid without repeating those recommendations. So that could be an option. But I would, I'm just a little concerned that I'm tacitly endorsing closing Da Vinci if I vote for this as it was written because of the additional language, even though it's not directive language. Just throwing it out there.
Oh, go ahead, Lynn.
If James is going to answer that.
Go ahead.
So I agree with you, right? When I first drafted this, the list of explicitly impacted schools was not part of the motion. But as I revisited it, I was trying to make concrete the understanding of what transition to 4K through 8 meant when you looked at all of recommendations, because I wanted to be clear that it wasn't just the schools that were closing, but there are many schools populations that were impacted because we started sending them in different directions to make the ultimate set of schools full, right? So I hear what you're saying. I would hope that we could maybe introduce the list in such a way where they are examples or something to, give you comfort in what you're voting on. And we could vote to amend the resolution and take them out as well. So I hear what you're saying, and I struggled with the same.
Go ahead, Lynn.
I think this was originally a question for Brian, but maybe now it's a question for James too. When you talk about making Webster into a K-8, are you assuming the Da Vinci students have been moved into that school or not?
No,
And to that point, using the logic that I used to build the list of schools, Da Vinci is only included in that if the plan evolves where Webster is used for another purpose, the question of closing Leonardo da Vinci is moot, right? There is no place to relocate that. So if you don't like that association within the resolution, please put forward a motion that is specific to Da Vinci if that's what makes you more comfortable.
Brian.
my intent with that idea of either Washington or Webster is also to continue I know we're not talking about necessarily programming with it, but to continue the fine arts program through there and continue to feed it up to East. So that's why separating the two with it, so.
Okay. Go ahead, Nancy.
So then if we're going to do a K-8 at, maybe at Webster, then would that change what we would do at Langley? You know what I mean? So it's all going to,
So the resolution is written to give that task force the latitude necessary to make the changes that are in line with the equity study. So at that point, that's when you have to look at all of that movement and reassess the associated boundary changes.
Brian.
And this goes into one of the things that we've worked on throughout this is making sure that we have this taking place in an open forum and so these are ideas that are coming out to everyone for the first time because of Wisconsin open meeting laws and everything else with that. So when we're looking at how does this impact Langley, yes, it would shift things, but this is our first opportunity as a board to discuss this amongst everyone, so.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Brian.
My other concern or question with it is, we've received feedback from Dewey staff and students about placement of the building. And I'm just curious as to everyone's feelings about either keeping them in a different building as opposed to moving them into a traditional high school. I personally would like to give them the autonomy of being in a separate building. It's a successful program for them. We have a waiting list for the online part, I understand. And just the structure sometimes just helps other students with it as opposed to a traditional classroom model. So when we're looking at the Franklin one, the West one, taking that into consideration as well.
James.
I hear you. And when I put these resolutions together, first of all, it's one of the most incredibly difficult things I've done. And if I make that argument, then I have to make the same argument for Wequiak and same argument for others. So until an architect or a design firm says we're unable to create the necessary educational environment specific to that population, I don't know how I can offer some sort of reprieve from the plan, because the basic logic I employed was, is it referendum dependent, right? Does it result in a cost savings from a facilities perspective? Does it feed into another facility being used at its optimal capacity, right? So when I went through and looked at JDOL, and this is just me evaluating the schema, that's why the resolution is written the way it is. However, the study still has to be done. Someone has to say yes, and it's written as a unique educational environment, not part of the general population.
Okay. Is there anything else that anybody else wants to offer? Andrew.
I guess not. I probably would have amendments that, I guess I don't think we can rule out having more things that may come up, but I just want to make sure that we're not precluding that, but I think because I probably will, but I won't know what it is until I see how some of these things develop, right? And what gets included in resolutions, what might get taken out of resolutions. I guess one other thing that I will throw out one other point. Since one of the problems is how much space is empty, could we theoretically work with our community partners that might be renting commercial space for childcare? Could that exist in buildings that might be a family-friendly option? If there is a, I'm not saying it would just be for district employee, nothing like that. It would just be, if we have X amount of free space in West, do we have a need for recognized community partner childcare place to put something in there, thereby using up more of the space, being revenue positive? I guess that could be, maybe a win-win for families throughout there.
I like the idea of instructing further exploration of that. And that is what James has offered. That's the structure of these to initiate, a Green Bay Area Public School District is directed to initiate the necessary activities to assess the impact of community, educational pathways, and student safety. This to me sounds like, that sounds like a really interesting thing to also maybe take into consideration, right? The need is huge in our community for childcare. Go ahead, Brian.
The need is also significant for childcare workers, and this goes into our opportunity to make sure our students are career ready. That if we were to look at partnering or continuing a partnership that we have with NWTC through our Northeast Wisconsin School of Innovation, of getting students licensed in these areas as well. There's a direct benefit, a fiscal benefit for the district as far as students' licensures and careers, but also meeting the needs of the area. I think that we would need to be concerned that we're also not putting necessarily a strain on the community of competing with the spots, but I think partnering with nonprofits tie into it tremendously. And knowing you for a long time, Andrew, I assume that's your intent with it as well with it. And I'm going to guess there's some legality purposes of it as far as what we can utilize the spaces, but Melissa's here, so.
Yeah. You don't need to weigh in tonight, Melissa, but okay. I do remember like this came up before, okay, some time ago, and that it wasn't really viable legally. So, okay. Go ahead, Lynn, sorry.
I think this might be a question for James. We were talking about JDOL a little while ago, I believe. And I wonder if somewhere in one of the, I'm sorry, but it's getting a little overwhelming for me. In one of these resolutions, are we instructing the staff to carefully consider what would be best for the JDOL program to stay in its own building or to move to the West High School building? You know, I mean, some people prefer one or the other, but I don't know that anyone has given any consideration as to what is the best site for that school and, you know, for that program and for those students. Are we including that so far?
The short answer is no, right? Because kind of the same logic that I applied before, right? The JDOL location, it being a facility, right? Until it's known whether or not an adequate facility can be created at West, you know, moving to assess whether that's right for that student population, you would want a comparison, right? This plan or this plan. So what that is that's part of the resolution to create a referendum question, right? So it's not binding. It's just, do we want to put on a ballot a request for the amount of money necessary to make these changes? It is to be presented to the board in time. So if we so determine it's necessary to make the 24 or to address deficit issues as early as April, it would be the first ballot that could appear on. So in the planning and preparation for that referendum question, I don't want to limit the districts to, you know, creative ideas.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Okay, since we're talking about JDL, I don't see a way that you can move. The word adequate is interesting here, right? We can make a space that looks really good, and we can do it well in a lot of different spaces. However, there are a lot of families and students at JDL who specifically are choosing that because of a smaller, more intimate learning community that fits in just right where it is. And unless I were to be hearing from that community, which I have not been, that, oh yeah, these extra, I mean, we can sit up here and say, you know, well, here's some things that we think would be better at, you would be closer to be able to go take this or that class, but that could have been asked for at any time and it wasn't. And in fact, in 2017, the specific idea of having a school within a school at West was already studied and rejected, and the separate, you know, that closer knit learning community in its own space was something that people wanted and were willing to accept some trade-offs of green space and so forth for that. So I think that would, to put it into West, it takes that away and putting in a different, we've done, you know, and this is where I have some historical backgrounds. We've done schools within a school and we've done them the best that we could. And we've done them as well as we could, and it's not the same. It's not its own school, not really. That's my concern. And I would like to see, especially given that it seems that most of the, correct me if I'm wrong, but probably if JDL moved into West, offices would have been slated to go into the Cherry Street building anyways. I don't see where there's a lot of gain there in moving it. So I would prefer to see the move of JDL to West just come off the table. And yes, West space needs to be used. There's other ways we can do it, including more district offices in it potentially. That's where I would like to, that is one thing I would like to just see go, because you cannot do it and keep that close-knit, more intimate community, which is what I believe a lot of people are there for, at least as much for that as for project-based learning.
Just a strange little note, historic note. I was recently told by a former employee of our district that a JDL student some years ago did that one of their capstone projects was the exploration of taking part of West and making it into JDL. So there were plans and you know, floor plans and all kinds of things. And that was one of their capstone projects. And somewhere, I don't know, maybe Josh can dig them up or something, somewhere that those plans still exist. Hopefully they still exist. I think they ended up with facilities. So anyway, that's just something I wanted to add. Laura.
I just want to thank you for all of my fellow board members who put these proposals together. This conversation is going a different direction than I anticipated coming in this evening, I think, because I wasn't able to touch base with a lot of you after all of our public hearings and roundtables. I wasn't completely sure what to expect this evening, but I'm really happy that and with the community here, that I feel like everybody here has listened to them, valued the work of the task force, but also valued the voices here as well. I just a little clarification, I want to make sure that we're consistent. And I think the argument that you just shared, Andrew, regarding JDL is exactly what we're hearing about Wequiak. And so I think that that's the challenge, or Da Vinci, you know, so I think that's the challenge that we're facing. And if you see it a little bit differently, please do to expound on that. Yeah.
Sure. So, and this is not, right. So if you put the crux of it is, if you put it, I don't have my mind completely made up on this. If you took the K-5 population of Wequiak and you put it into Smith, right? It's our standard, it's our regular curriculum. And perhaps you could make some modification and bring the environmental piece into Red Smith, but either way, that's moving students within our standard curriculum from one place into another, as would be Tank. And in either of those cases, you would be doing it to take maintenance costs of a very small building off the rolls, right? So if you were, it is a different, JDL is a different setup, and the building was not slated for closure anyways. It would be slated for offices. So that's a big part of it. That's the key. I think the difference that, but even more so the fact that it is a different delivery. It's a different program. Da Vinci is, I think the arguments against moving Da Vinci are a little bit different, because if you did, I don't support it, but if you did, there would be one net building to close because you'd be moving Webster students elsewhere. And again, I don't support that, but that's why that one's a little different. JDEL is unique. It's a successful, district instrumentality charter that's done really well. And I know that it provides an opportunity to keep, provides an opportunity for students to continue their learning with us who might be going elsewhere, who might be going to an online only elsewhere, not as their first choice. And again, I don't see that there's a big money savings there because the building, you wouldn't save a principal if it was a true school within a school because you would still have one. You wouldn't save a secretary because if it were a true school within, there's just not the same amounts of savings and the building would still be used. That again, does not mean that I'm saying at this point, I support just straight up closing Weequahic right off the bat. I think at a minimum, Weequahic, we would have to find a way to keep Weequahic to bring it to all the way full. Otherwise, I think there's for sure no choice, but that's where I'm at.
Brian.
Adding with what Andrew said, it's my understanding, and I walked over to Josh to just give him the heads up that I was going to be asking for enrollment numbers at JDL. When I had spoken regarding JDL and regarding my regular job, it's my understanding that they have a wait list for their online programming and for entrance. So Josh, I'm going to pause enough for you to walk up with that question I just threw out regarding the enrollment numbers at JDL.
I don't know the answer to the question about the wait list. The enrollment at John Dewey as of today is 123 students. And while we're talking enrollment numbers, the enrollment at Washington is about 700. Yeah.
Go ahead, Lynn.
I just want to push back a little bit on taking the movement of the John Dewey Academy off the table. Because, first of all, if you moved the administrative offices into that building, Andrew, you did propose closing this building, so that would be a start in that direction. But I also would like to have somebody more better equipped than I am to decide whether it would be good or not to put JDL in West High School. I don't think I have the capacity to know that, but I think we should keep it on the table. I just think that people in the community are so interested in preserving West High School, a historic building and a beautiful, wonderful facility, and using it well. And that is an opportunity. I'd like somebody smarter about that than me to be making that decision. We do know that JDL, the building JDL is in, can be an office building because I believe that's what it was originally. So, sometimes we assume that change is going to be worse, but sometimes change is better.
James.
I appreciate your position, Andrew, and again, it's thoughtful and I understand it. At this point, I would have someone make a motion when we get to it and have the board vote on whether or not to take JDL off the resolution to create the referendum question. Because I'm not there yet. I see and I visited Weequahic, and there's a lot there that parents choose. And to Lynn's point, I've never looked at the return on investment of moving that JDL into West as the JDL building, but this building, right? And that's what kind of informed me. So if the board votes to remove it, I appreciate that.
Go ahead, Vicky.
Brian, in response to the enrollment question, for the 23-24 school year, there are 30 students on the wait list for the high school program of John Dewey Academy of Learning.
Andrew.
If there's, yeah, so first of all, I think having talked to a lot of people over the years about what's important about JDL and having worked directly with JDL students and been involved in student leadership retreats in which JDL was a percentage-wise very high proportion of the leadership retreats that I was running, I would say I am fairly knowledgeable about it. That being said, I've also said that I'm not here on the board because I think I have all the answers. I'm here on the board because I know that I don't. I would be much more interested in finding a way that we could have a serious exploration of this with Dewey families rather than roll the dice and see whether striking it from a vote tonight passes or fails. I mean, I am open. I would much rather have that explored and hear the conclusion that actually, Becker, you're wrong. And, 70% of the families think it would be good because of this and that and the other thing. I would be shocked, but I would rather see that explored in earnest than just essentially decide the placement of Dewey tonight.
Point of order.
Go ahead.
Point of order, the resolution states that modify West High School to create an accessible district administration space to receive select district administration staff and or create a distinct educational. So if we pass on the opportunity to instruct the district now to at least evaluate and consider that move as part of the referendum question, we'll miss a window, right? And if that study, if outreach to JDL families takes 3 months, what have you, to come to a decision, it jeopardizes the move, right? So I don't think that any movement or action on this resolution today binds the district to a particular path.
Okay, Lynn.
Before we go, in response to Andrew's proposal of seeking input from the John Dewey families, I would prefer, before I go to families and ask them their opinion on anything about their child's school, I would prefer to have good, solid information from educational professionals to give to them and share with them before I ask them what they think.
Okay. Go ahead, Nancy. I think,
Also, it might not even be West. When I'm looking at it, I thought I had another good idea that I'm not going to say tonight. But I think we have to make some decisions and we have to keep, we all have good ideas. Everybody has good ideas, but we have to kind of figure out what we're going to do tonight now.
I agree with you in that we need to set a path, make at least a few decisions tonight and instruct staff to get on with it, basically. I would like to not put that off tonight at all. Go ahead, Brian.
I have two things with this. First of all, I think that's what we're on right now is that path. And I think the conversation we're having is strong, especially this is our first shot at it as a full board. Looking and recognizing that NEW School of the school at NWTC is not on the table with this at all, but just looking at programming and the opportunities that we have for different school settings. Vicky, do you know, it's my understanding we had a wait list on that, or they were at capacity this year and will continue to be so?
Yes, that's correct.
What I'm getting at with that is there's a need in this community to make sure that we're providing different forms of education and to be honest, in sometimes different settings. And it's my understanding that the NEW school at NWTC students provide their own transportation, correct? Thank you.
The amount of, and that's showing up in this conversation, the amount of specialized programming and pathways that our district offers is kind of breathtaking. And I think that this community should be very, very proud of that and has always supported that. But now we're going through this transition. So how do we find homes? How do we maximize our buildings? How do we find efficiencies because they're desperately needed? So I'd rather that our resources, which the state of Wisconsin, our state legislature has proven that we can't necessarily count on them to fund public education adequately. So we have to honor the tax dollars that we do have and use those as efficiently as possible. And that's going to be a real challenge. I'd rather put our money and resources to programming than in buildings that are half full. So. Viva.
I don't know if this is entirely relevant to add, but Mr. Becker, you were talking about getting feedback from community members with JDOL on moving them into West based on the Green Bay Facilities Master Plan Survey from March 2023. 19.2% of the survey takers strongly agreed and 40.8% agreed. Moving JDOL into West.
Which I appreciate that, but they don't, that's general survey takers that are looking, you may have agreed strongly because yes, anything to keep West more full, may not know about the importance of that as being a discrete, as being a small learning community. This is what I'm afraid of is that something that's going real great for a lot of kids at JDL that isn't talked about a whole lot, and it's not a large group that gets there's a lot of attention, okay? I know kids who I can name, who are successful in college and in professions right now, who without specifically the smaller learning community environment of JDL would at least have failed out of school, or maybe even something worse than that, but didn't and graduated and were successful because, again, not even so much because of project-based learning, but it is a unique environment that's in there, as Aldo is a unique environment that captures certain kids and families. So while yes, I do see where people would have seen that in the survey as a less bad, it's a very niche topic to put in a survey like that, and it's going to, if you ask the question, if you had a whole paragraph about it, it may have been different. I suppose if I were forced into a situation where the only reason to not close the only method to not close West or turn West into a non-high school was to do that, I might have to swallow that bitter pill, but we're frankly not there because it's just about really at this point, it would be only what else would go into West. If I could offer maybe the one thing that there would all be a lot of agreement on, because I've heard no one speak against it, is starting the ball rolling with the motion to direct the administration to close the central office building and move offices into the buildings.
Can we just hit the pause? First of all, Viva, thank you for offering that data. You were on our task force and you served and we're at all the meetings, and so I give weight to your input, and the survey, the survey was solid, and it did offer those results. So thank you for offering that up. I appreciate that. I don't know how that would work exactly within the context of kind of what we've been talking about. So James?
I appreciate that, and I agree with you. right? I am biased not to direct the administration to execute a plan when we don't know all the pieces and parts, right? The recommendation from the task force, if it was not equitable or other problems of process, it informs us as to what's possible, right? From a facilities perspective, what fits where, how can we do this? So I am not in agreement that taking a general position that we direct the district to close the DOB without an understanding of what happens and where that goes, and just generally leave it to a distribution amongst other schools, not knowing the impact of whether or not then those are going to be closed or not downstream. So if in the name of thoughtfulness, I would, if we're going to make that motion, the motion on the table or the resolution on the table based on a referendum takes the action to direct the district to close the DOB, right? So without the surrounding understanding of where and what, I'm a no on that resolution.
I don't think that we can, I don't think closing DOB can be a standalone issue. It's too interconnected with everything else.
But it sets a priority. It sets a priority that if we can keep, if we can keep another school open because we distributed out DOB offices, and therefore fewer kids have to get on a bus and a building is still used efficiently. I mean, that's the most important. Adult convenience of working in offices has to be secondary to can we keep so, and I don't know where that would be, but I do know that there's some probably more accommodating to putting offices in it than others, but it is also good, and I've heard no pushback. This is one of the most popular things I've said that everyone has agreed with, I've talked about, is it is good. It's good for people who are stuck in a building where they aren't around kids very much to have some paths crossing with kids. It's a healthy thing that in a 2-building district where the high school is the district admin office, it happens every day. So that is a healthy positive that we can do that I think there's probably almost no opposition to. And that would set a priority that I just don't want to have to come back and deal with something where, well, maybe we'll just close half of DOB and then there's some, I offered it, but if that's going to make it more complicated, although I will, in the end, I'm not going to vote for any plan that leaves DOB open in the conventional sense. I would vote no on the plan. So.
Well, it's it's embedded into one of these resolutions. So to do that, but because of the interconnected nature of that, no one's saying not to do it. We're just saying that it's part of a bigger plan.
Which one is it in? The referendum one?
It's correct. It's the referendum question.
Yeah.
Do you mean you're counting the modify West High School to create an accessible district administration space? Is that where you're saying it's included, or am I just straight up missing a bigger piece in the resolve clause?
It's in the result. It's in the whereas clause. The context of the directive is that there was a recommendation by ATS&R to close, or by the task force to close the DOB. So that is the reasoning behind the referendum question.
So it's in a whereas clause that isn't binding. And then in the binding resolve clause, it only talks about doing it at West.
If we do a motion and vote on it tonight, it will be binding, right?
The binding question is when we vote on what the referendum is going to contain, right? So this is a directive to do all the planning necessary to understand all the capital requirements to make the changes listed, right? So whereas creates the context for that, but ultimately we're not bound to an action until we start executing the projects based on a referendum.
but we're giving heavy, I think my problem is the motions we passed tonight, I think give very heavy weight to setting certain things in motion, and I think I need some more clarification on whether there are things that are, I mean, yes, true, the referendum question itself, that's a separate binding motion someday, I get that, but it is not if we're gonna do these, I would prefer to do them right in such a way that all 7 of us could feel that the important additional questions would still be asked and just have to, protest, vote no on some of them, right? So I don't think a whereas clause carries the same weight as the be it resolved clause. In fact, I don't know that it counts at all. No, not at all, right?
Brian,
I appreciate the effort, James, with this, especially the amount of time you put into this. I don't see how moving the district office building to west would be something that would be greatly impacted by a referendum with it. I understand that people would need to move, and I think it may have been a spot to put into it, but I don't know how moving the district office into a high school would require the capital expenditure that would be of the other parts on that. We have had speech and language pathologists working out of closets. We have had staff in barns in high schools with office space. I appreciate the work that our district office staff does. I think we can be flexible, and if we need to partition classrooms to start to make that work, we can figure it out. I don't know how, in my mind, how that impacts the referendum question as much as the other parts. I don't know if I'm being clear on that. And Andrew, I'm kind of trying to help you. I think that can be removed from the referendum part.
go ahead, James.
So in conversations with district administration staff, the issue is that space has to be accessible and securable to the public. So there is envisioned modifications to west in order to make that a distinct space so that they can maintain the 2 functions of administration and the student population. So you can obviously vote to remove it from the resolution, but that's the reason why it's referendum dependent.
And I appreciate that part into it. Again, I'm hoping that those are changes that could be made without a significant part that comes up from the referendum, but people are looking behind me, so I'm wondering if someone behind me needs to speak.
No. Nope. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I guess I'm concerned about it. It just seems to me if we pass this as is, it just puts a lot of weight into Dewey's going to go into West, even if it's not final and binding. It doesn't give much of an opportunity for, and then it also pushes West as the primary receiver of district office space. I would like to see district office space be distributed into a few different places. Maybe a school, I'm not going to pick any particular school, but we have schools that are maybe closer to being wildly under capacity than others. Could adding some district offices there allow a neighborhood school to remain a neighborhood school because we're now using the space efficiently with offices? I don't want, I guess this just seems to make it pretty West heavy, what we do, although I do agree with James that we should be looking towards a referendum, talking about, yes, modifying space at a building or buildings to accommodate this. And West probably will have at least some piece of DOB in it, I would think, but I don't know that it's the only one that would be. In fact, it couldn't be the only one that DOB would go into if we're gonna have a 700 student high school. So is it maybe that we don't need to specifically say in the referendum question modify West High School to blank? Is it maybe to make modifications as necessary to blank? Because, right, because if we're gonna put it in half in West and half in Building X, we have to make the same modifications to Building X, right? Potential.
So to your earlier point, I modified the resolution. So on the screen, it now says to create an accessible district administration space to receive select district administration staff to effectuate the closure of the district office building, right? If that satisfies the situation where we actually in the directive address the closure, it does not specifically say where the population of the district office administration lands, but it is, and we can add this to the resolution, it would be the John Dewey Business Office that would be vacated if that was part of the plan. Otherwise, there are other recommendations on the task force where Beaumont and other schools were identified as potential DOB locations.
Right, but none of them split the DOB up into as many multiple parts as I maybe would suggest.
And my resolution does not suggest that I agree with that. And I would also say that the weighting that you suggest is not supported by the words, right? So what is written was I tried to be as distinct as possible to avoid, somehow looking into or that this determines a particular strategy. If, again, if you want, we'll offer this up and, vote a particular way on it, but
Does it preclude the, okay, what if, since someone else said Beaumont, okay. What if we're gonna not put, what if we don't move JDL into, I'll leave JDL of it. What if we move what if we distribute out the district office building among part of West and part of Beaumont? Is that missed here now because we said modify West High to do that as opposed to modify buildings as needed to, right? Am I missing something?
this is a referendum question. And so if the district administration in preparation for a referendum question identifies a way where we would not have to include that modification in the referendum question, then they have every right to do that. This is saying build out a referendum and it will come back to the board for approval. So I think ultimately, Andrew, we have to create a starting place, right? And it is understandable that given an opportunity to do the research and come up with or identify other opportunities, I would direct us to take some sort of action to require that the district come back on every board meeting or at an interval to make sure that we are kept abreast of the planning activities. But this is to generate a question that we will then have an opportunity to debate and or modify after we have information necessary to have that conversation.
Everything isn't going to be decided tonight.
It's not intended to be.
So,
no.
Viva, I
But you
think
preclude other buildings going, you preclude putting DOB into other buildings with this, or you greatly, I don't see any free exploration of other places for DOB in here.
hang on, Viva. Did you have something you wanted to add?
I just had more of a clarification question, like in general, I guess. Mr. Becker, were you wanting to both not have the district office building in West and not have John Dewey in West?
I'm sure some of district office building will go in West, but it doesn't all fit in West. Right? So what I'm concerned about here, and that's a good question, I appreciate it. No, I don't want JDL in, and in fact, more of DOB offices may go into West if JDL doesn't go into West, right? But when I look at build a new elementary school, okay, implement security upgrades, that's separate. Modify West High School to accept space, then we know that West alone won't fit all the space, so why aren't we, that's what I don't understand.
Brian,
Just to get the pulse of the board on this, I support moving as much of DOB into West as possible. If it's the whole thing, that's fantastic. And I support keeping John Dewey in a setting similar to what they have right now. The students have been successful in that type of setting as opposed to going back into traditional high school. So just to get the pulse of other board members, I just want to lay that out there.
I mean, I don't see any benefit really to just scattering our administrative staff all over the district. I mean, there's a certain amount of efficiency of having people in one building doing, and I know that a lot of the staff here in this building are deployed out into the district every day. It's not like they just sit here in this building all day. They come and go. This building is so heavily used. I mean, trying to imagine this being moved to West. On any given day, you come in this building and there's a lot of stuff happening. There's, and all the professional development happens here. I mean, there's a reason why parking is such a problem here is because there's a lot of people who are getting work done on behalf of students every single day in this building. So scattering them out throughout the district is not, there's a great deal of inefficiency in that. That's just how I feel about it. I'm not saying that they all need to go to one space though. That doesn't seem likely at this point. But I'm interested in what you just said, Brian. Maybe we should modify accordingly. Go ahead, Lynn.
I just wanted to remind us that Nancy has suggested that we might want to consider asking the new superintendent to take a look at the administrative team and consider downsizing. I mean, that kind of goes together with where you put people. I also, again, would have to say, my background was as a teacher, not an administrator. I don't know which members of the administrative team ought to be in this central building and which would be better in a school building or some other place. But I would rather someone who's equipped to make those decisions give us some input rather than us just decide that.
Okay, Vicky has some input here.
Under the leadership of Dr. Wiegand, she's initiated a third-party study on district administration. So that's begun. We haven't formalized it yet, but we will be within the next 2 weeks and hope to have that completed by fall.
Go ahead, Nancy.
So a third party has already been working on this?
We're in the process of working through the contract right now. Hope to have it done next week.
The contract.
They're going to look at district office staffing positions in comparison to other districts our size.
Okay. And once the work begins to do that, once the contract is done and the work begins, can you ballpark a kind of an end date when we might have some result for that? Is it into the fall or is it going to take longer?
Is Judy here?
If you can't answer it right now, that's fine.
I'm thinking this fall.
This
It will be
fall.
complete.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Brian.
And this has been going on as well since we've recognized that this budget deficit was looming. This has been spoken about in just about every meeting as when we're looking at staffing to make sure that it's a necessary position. And I want to commend Vicky for taking that leadership on as we've continued with this. So while this is the formal study, we've been doing it for at least the last year. And I'm guessing previous ebbs and flows with different leadership on it, but this is something that has been brought up multiple times. And in the last year, we've seen numerous cost savings as far as teaching positions and administrative positions to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible. So I appreciate the fact that we're looking at the study for that. But and I know no one on the board is necessarily giving the impression that we haven't been doing that, but for the public, this is something we've been doing for at least the last year, if not longer.
And just to give it a little more context, I was part of a meeting today where I saw a little bit of preliminary information about what we're going to be presented with at our next, I think next month, is it, Angie, of the budget? Monday, oh, Monday, sorry, it's Monday. We're going to get a preliminary view of our budget, and there's some interesting data about staffing and the numbers. So we're going to know a lot more about that come Monday. So go ahead, Laura.
I just want to make a suggestion that perhaps we come back to the discussion about DOB. We have so many other things related to the schools to discuss as well. Maybe we could come back after everybody has a little time to think about the discussion so far.
Okay. So go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, so I don't know that James and I maybe don't have much disagreement at all. I mean, we know that even if we didn't put Dewey into West, if we don't put Dewey into West, there still isn't enough West to have 800 student full-size high school and all of DOB. So we know that we would, if we're closing DOB, which seems to be right. I guess what I say, what if we have C read modify existing buildings to blank, because we would have to modify West plus others to accommodate DOB. Right? If we didn't, wouldn't they have to come back and ask permission to say, hey, we read this, and by the way, yes, we have to use West plus Beaumont to accomplish it? Or
No, in that Beaumont would, as it is recommended, would not be referendum dependent, right? So what I'm concerned about is there are a lot of exploratory opportunities, right? And the reason why this is positioned as a referendum question is there are items that were recommended that we know we cannot manage without going to referendum, right? So the question about, where is the next facility is all just scoped to, would we have to spend referendum sized dollars to modify it to receive it? So we might not, right? So I agree with you. We're in agreement. What I don't think in agreement with on is if the strategy is to spread DOB out amongst a bunch of schools in order to keep those neighborhood schools open, that runs contrary to our right sizing mandate, right? So I just want to make sure that we agree, but not necessarily 100%.
Because it's not enough in this plan to just close DOB.
Right. If
We
you
need to
close
make-
DOB, spread it out, and you keep 6 other schools open because you spread that out to bring other schools up to capacity, although that might be, optimal from a DOB interaction with school district, it doesn't right size our district when it comes to enrollment, because we could put all of those individuals in one position and close 4, right?
Or you could just keep DOB where it is, right? So, and nobody wants to do that, so. Go ahead, Lynn.
I just want to say now, because we keep using the word referendum, and because I know that a lot of people in the public are listening, I want to remind everybody, because we've heard this question so many times now, what did you do with all that money from last November's referendum? And I want to make sure everyone knows that at our last meeting, Josh provided us a list of all of the things that had been started with the referendum money for the referendum that was passed in November. He earmarked for us the ones that would have gone into buildings we're considering closing, and that is being held. No money is being invested in buildings that we are considering closing. And I was very satisfied with the report, and I assume it's on the website if someone needs to look at it. But I just want to put that to bed right now. We are not talking about misusing or failing to use the money that the taxpayers voted for last time.
And we'll be revisiting that list as it gets updated, as decisions are made on these referendum projects. It's going to be monitored, by the Board of Education going forward for months. So, okay. All right. No, I think we need to make some decisions tonight. So, yeah, We haven't-
I can make the motions.
okay. Do you want to start with the referendum one? Go ahead, Brian.
We've had some updates on that and I think looking, if we could get a printout of the updated ones would be beneficial for it with the changes that have happened on there. So James, is this a Google Doc that you're adding to, or is Kinsey?
Kinsey's doing it, I believe.
Okay,
Did we get a copy of Andrews? Brian's got it.
This one? Oh, sorry, Andrew.
No.
Yeah, so this doc has been shared with administration staff, so yeah, if we can get it printed.
So you're not saying, James, that, okay, let's say we put a part of DOB in Washington that might, in a part of Washington that might need referendum work, then the assumption would be, we're saying west, you're saying west because we are certain, virtually certain that at least some of DOB would go in there and it would need referendum money to do it. And you're with the understanding that it may come back being we need West and Washington to have referendum money to do it. Or maybe West and XYZ place for the other half of it that doesn't need anything.
So Washington as a location for DOB was left out because that is part of that larger evaluation where we need the information about equity and everything. So if through that process, it is decided that a positive use for Washington is to keep it open, have some student population there, and have a district office presence there, that would be a part of another referendum question, because the way the resolutions are offered allow us to take action on things that we are more concise in the boundaries that are impacted, the sensitivity of keeping populations of students within their community, even though that community is a little bit larger now, it's not a large busing to someplace else. So there absolutely would be some sort of referendum question necessary after the evaluation of the K-8 happens, because their proposed gymnasiums and modifications to schools in order to receive new populations to schools or enhanced to receive large populations. So there's something else there. It is dependent on getting through the necessary equity studies before we even start talking about what that looks like.
I can vote, I could probably vote now that it was changed, I could vote yes on the referendum one because I'm with that added language. I think that is a bit more directive about DOB, but I do want to know how are we going to if you're not going to just take it from me, how are we going to get the feedback that either says, no, Becker, you're nuts, they want to go into West, which is not going to happen, but that it could, or yes, we need the smaller learning communities, why we're here, and that what I'm saying is true. Like where does that, I can vote yes on this now, but I don't want that to get lost in the shuffle. And obviously my research on it is not sufficiently convincing for folks, and it doesn't have to be, so.
Yeah, I think that it's reasonable that you should raise a motion that would direct the district to do that study. I think the referendum question can remain intact because of the and/or, but if that study continues and it provides the answers that support your argument, then that would inform the actual action.
Go ahead, Brian.
James, as we look at these coming up as well, is there a spot where the two things I brought up earlier, the building specific for our ID students and autism students would fit in as a motion on any of these? Also, the possibility of looking at a K-8 school at either the Washington site or the Webster site.
The document has been modified to address the latter. Under assessment activities, C now reads propose alternative location for 4K through 8 facility investment. Examples given, Washington, Webster Elementary, and Washington Middle School. Does that suffice?
Yes. And then the ID programming.
Can you just add something? Okay,
Because I love wordsmithing in public.
yeah.
That's what I love doing that.
Can you add E? Okay.
As he does that, does anyone else have access to this as a Google document as far as the board is? No, okay.
While we're doing that, Nancy, I'm looking at your two motions. The one that is already happening, that study is already happening. And the other one is embedded, I think, in that. So if you're okay, can we not, I don't want to say discard, but are you satisfied that the two issues that you brought forth are being addressed?
Will we know the name of the company like next week or something after the contract is through?
If you recall, technology department had, I think you were on the board at the time, had a review of their department as a Singleton by Keys. And that's who we're working with at this time.
Keys? Okay.
Of course. Oh, look at E and.
Then yes, Laura, that's fine.
Okay, so, all right, good, thank you. Are those the new copies, James?
They
Oh.
are, but I'm distracted.
Okay. Go ahead, Brian.
Looking at the intent, and I'm not sure who would answer this. My intent with E, I think I'm pretty clear on as far as making sure that we can look at repurposing one of the buildings as a ID specific option. I don't know who to ask on this, whether it's Melissa or Vicky or someone. Is that met within that motion? I mean, we're directing activities, and I think the rest of the board understands what my intent is on that. Am I correct?
Yeah, I just get a little nervous about intent being clear and then not in the written motion. But I also get not wordsmithing a 500 word motion on the fly too.
Brian.
I guess my question is going to go to Melissa on it. Does that meet the purpose of the resolution or no?
I apologize because I was out of the room making copies. So can you just, making the copies, can you just quickly tell me what resolution you're looking at and what you're referring to?
Well, as they scroll up, the resolution is the repurposing schools with referendum, and then going back down. Proposed locations that can be repurposed to deliver ID services. And it's on yours because we changed it right after you printed it off. Hey, that's James, not me. On that, so.
Can you see it? Can you ask your question one more time? Brian?
Does that meet the intent of looking at repurposing a building to be specific to medically fragile and ID services, similar to what HOP is providing for our students, so we have proper toileting areas and we can provide transitional services as they reach it, but doesn't paint us into a corner with it.
And are you wanting this specific to ID or more general to special education?
I'd like it within special education services. Let me think on that.
I think what Kinsey's saying is this, so this is general with respect to location, enough to get to your concern about not pinpointing the location, but it's specific with, and I would spell out ID, I wouldn't leave the acronym in there, but it's very specific to only ID services. So students who aren't identified as ID, but may benefit from a Sybil Hop type model would not fall under this amendment.
My concern with making it special education services is then the umbrella becomes too big for what we're specifically looking at with the intent. And I'm looking, and Claudia is not here, correct? Is she?
It's in the back.
Yeah. I'm sorry to put you on the spot like this. Can you think of phrasing that would be with the intent? I mean, I recognize the ID services part of it, but there's many layers on this. And once again, Claudia, I have not spoken to you about this, so I'm sorry to put you on the spot with this, but I'm hoping you're getting the intent of what I'm looking at.
I think the wording would be students with disabilities who are on the alternate assessment or who are alternate assessment standards, alternate curriculum. Common Core essential elements, students with disabilities who are utilizing Common Core essential elements. That's what your intent is, correct?
That's absolutely the phrasing I'm looking for. Thank you.
Laura,
You can't move on until I get that. State that again. No, that's,
Claudia, can you come back up here and repeat that?
I know.
Oh,
So, Kinsey, I'm making the modifications, just. Okay. You go ahead.
Can you say what you said before?
Oh, students with disabilities who access the Common Core essential elements curriculum or who utilize the Common Core essential elements. So those would be the ones that Brian's talking about, the students that would be the transition services and those types of things, I believe.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's one other part with that. I'm sorry, Laura.
Hey, Laura.
We're talking about, we're here because of the budget deficit. I anticipate we've been missing it, but I feel like we're pitching a new program within this that I would anticipate is going to be a significant cost to be able to have a facility up to standards. Not that it's not needed, but also there may be other programs that we think that the district needs or would be suitable for other student populations. So I'm not understanding why this is fitting in here now. This hasn't been a topic of discussion until this evening regarding all of this. It seems out of place to me, although
And sorry, Laura, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I believe that we're already looking and we have looked at Minoka Hill and the expense that is. I can guarantee this building is going to cost more than the per pupil student in Minoka is. I would like to enter into conversations with Brian about a different proposal, but I don't know that this is the time because any proposals such as that I've had in somewhat similar to Brian's. I was looking at post-high kids who are 18 and older having a facility of their own. But again, I didn't feel that this being in the time of budget deficits, that this was the time to enter into a conversation about that, but
Brian.
So looking at this specifically, there's one thing that I would like changed in there is to offer, as opposed to deliver, because of just the purpose with it. As I've mentioned before, this is our opportunity to make sure that we can also have significant changes to improve the educational opportunities for our students. The reason this hasn't been brought up is because for us to bring it up outside would be not being in, and we'd have to be in an open forum with it. So I get your concern with it, and looking at the budget part of it, this also gives us that opportunity to deliver services to students, just as we're looking at with some of the other options on that. So.
Go ahead, Nancy. Oh, yes, please.
So you directed me to the resolution on the referendum. The one that you're editing is the resolution on repurposing the facilities and the proposed boundary changes. I just want to make sure that's the right one.
That's correct, right? And so we're looking at what is the scope and nature of the assessment that we would perform in identifying what the changes would be. So, I imagine that Brian is interested in that assessment, taking into account that there may be facilities that are more readily modified versus not. So this doesn't bind the district to any action. It is just when you're doing that study, take into consideration that there is a population of students that require modified facilities in order to provide that service. I think that's all we're talking about. It's not, hey, let's change programming or so.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Also, it may actually be cheaper when specialized teachers don't have to travel to so many different schools. And so many schools that do have the ID programs, they have to have classrooms in each of those schools that have to have all the same equipment. It kind of reminds me of, like, if you're on a maternity ward and you think, well, let's have 3 floors have maternity wards. All of your equipment and stuff, all your people, when you have that, Sybil Hop show is a great example of it. And when I was a student in the Green Bay Public Schools, we did have a school that was set up that way. It was at Jefferson School. And that was a long time ago, but
Okay.
we did have one.
All right. Go ahead, Laura.
And the initial proposal was that this would be in addition to what the services that are provided already. So it would be an additional expense, but I can understand if there's already going to be an assessment done to put that in as well. I just didn't want to make it something that we're going to have to invest additional funds in right now.
Brian? Okay, all right. Go ahead, Lynn.
I just wanted to point out that by Brian bringing this up now, I know it takes a little more time, it makes things more complicated, but that's exactly what we need to do if we're going to make change and disruption work for us. It's an opportunity to make things better rather than just saying all the time, change is hard, you're going to have to put up with it. No, change opens the door to better things, and Brian is doing that for us.
Okay, Andrew.
Yeah, I think this, if we want people to look back on this in 20 years, and yes, I support a lesser degree of closure than probably most others, but obviously we have thousands of empty seats and something needs to happen. I think it will tell one story if, right, we talked, all the messaging that's gone out has been about redesigning and, making this better for everyone, right? Where you could just do a messaging package of, we're going to save bucks. We are going to close we're going to move kids together, and we're going to and we're gonna save money, it's gonna be great. That could be the message, but that's not the message we're doing. We're doing the message of we're going to make things better in the process, and I hope we can do that to the, to the greatest extent possible. So that's why I think this and other things need to have a way to come up. And I don't know where, maybe that means we need more meetings. Maybe we need another meeting on we wouldn't have, maybe we need another meeting on the 19th, or maybe we need to have meetings every 2 weeks so we can put in more motions if we need to. I don't know what the mechanism is, but we need to, I'm interested in what we'll hear back from the community for over the next couple of weeks about some of these things that got more attention. That said, I can vote yes now on the referendum resolution as modified. I could vote yes on that. And
Would someone like to make that motion?
James, can you share this Google Doc with all of us so we can just see the screen up there as well? Don't give us editing rights though, please. And just for the audience, what he shared is the packet of all 4 motions or resolutions.
And one more thing before I think I can make a motion about the referendum question. We are not de facto precluding a study from coming back to us saying, hey, by the way, in addition to West, which, yep, we'll need some referendum dollars to put half of DOB in it. We also want to suggest that we add some referendum dollars to move the other half of DOB into blank. That's not precluded. It would just be something new that would come back. It's not highly directive as a only do West or things that are non-referendum.
I would imagine that at any board meeting between now and November, that board members could make sure, because if we have a standing agenda item to review and assess the progress towards these initiatives, that at any time between now and then, a motion could be raised to modify the resolution to include additional or other opportunities.
By then we'll have the benefit of more information.
If it'll be posted for action, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because we've had, COVID was gonna be posted for action all the time, and then it was magically posted by other people who don't go here anymore as discussion, and then you couldn't make a motion on it. So, okay, but that was other faults. Okay.
All right, Brian.
On our document, the page 9. I'm sorry, page 8, where we talk about alternative locations for 4K through 8 facility investment, e.g. Webster Elementary and Washington Middle School. James, would you feel okay with specifically naming Webster Elementary and Washington Middle School, or making sure it's focused on that location, or does the intent of the motion cover that?
I think I've had conversations and there are opportunities, including those two, for citing new construction on the east side. And I don't want to limit that activity just to these two locations. So as examples, I agree with them because I think it addresses your concern, but I don't think I want to say only those two locations.
All right, are we ready to,
I'll, yeah, I will move the adoption of the resolution entitled related to the facility master planning task force recommendations pertaining to creating a referendum question as currently presented.
be approved? Brian?
I'll second that, but I'd like to read it for the people that don't have it in front of us.
Please,
The
whole
Andrew, are
thing.
you okay with it? With me reading it?
all
Would
right.
you like the first 6 paragraphs or no? Okay, no. Whereas the Facility Master Planning Committee proposal to transition Langlade Elementary School, McAuliffe Elementary School, and no, I'm on the wrong one.
The next one up.
So I've had James do it. The whereas in the order, or am I on the wrong resolution with it altogether?
Long resolution.
Yeah, go ahead,
Try to help you out, James. You got it.
go ahead. It is confusing, to have them all together, yeah. Yeah. So,
Oh, this is
page 5. Yeah,
when you scroll, they come up.
5, yeah, scroll up, okay, so page 5,
You're looking. Absolutely.
okay. All right,
Sorry, everyone. All right, whereas several neighborhood elementary schools. I'm looking to confirm, James.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. On the west side of the Green Bay Area Public School District are operating at well below optimal enrollment levels. And whereas Kennedy Elementary School site is amenable to the construction of a new elementary school with capacity enough to enable relocating the student populations of multiple low enrollment elementary schools to a single modern facility. And whereas the Facility Master Planning Task Force recommends secured entry updates at several Green Bay Area public schools to better control visitors' access and improve the overall security of those schools. And whereas West High School is operating at 60% capacity and can be modified to accommodate a distinct educational environment for the project-based learning program of the John Dewey Academy of Learning. And whereas the Facility Master Planning Task Force recommends closing the Green Bay Area Public School District office building. And whereas the facility assessments performed by ATSR prioritized upcoming investments in facility infrastructure. Laura, you're throwing me off with that. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Green Bay Area Public School District is directed to initiate all necessary activities required to prepare a proposed capital referendum question and present the resulting project list, capital requirements, and all other pertinent information on or before 11/1/2023, such that the board can approve a capital referendum question as follows. A, build a new elementary school on the site of Kennedy Elementary School to enable, upon its completion, the district to consolidate the student populations of selected West Side elementary schools. B, implement the recommended security upgrades at the following schools: Southwest High School, Lombardi Middle School, East High School, Preble High School, Edison Middle School, Eisenhower Elementary School, and Wilder Elementary School. And C, modify West High School to create an accessible district administration space to receive select district administration staff to effectuate the closure of the district office building and/or create a distinct educational environment for the John Dewey Academy of Learning Charter School. Part D, to address timely priority facility issues as recommended by the Master Facility Planning Committee. And that is it. So I was the second.
you were the second, okay. All right, before we take a vote, does anyone have anything else? Feel free to weigh in, guys. Thank you. Okay, so I just want to make sure everyone has felt heard. All right, Kinsey. we're ready
Laura,
to-
can I read the motion on the table?
Please.
That the resolution related to the Facility Master Planning Task Force recommendations pertaining to creating a referendum question as currently presented be approved.
Good? All right, Kinsey.
Online voting is now open.
All probably timed out, so this one might have to go again.
It came up for me. Okay.
All votes have been entered in the motion, or the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Okay. All right, that feels like we've made some progress. Got a lot to go here, guys. So of these, the three that are remaining, which would you like to take up next and talk about? Go ahead, Brian.
Just for the mechanics of this, James, is it possible you could change the color of the font or something on here so we know which ones have passed as the owner of the document?
Yeah, sure, please.
I see, Nancy, that you recommended a header and a, is that you? Oh, and a footer? Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, okay, so I am, opening up the floor again to talk about what you'd like to take up next. Would you like to talk about, go ahead, James.
I move that we take action or on the question about repurposing schools for K to 8 facilities. It was the latest one we just modified. So if we could have a final reading of that one and vote on that one, I think that's an appropriate course of action. Yeah, the last one. Correct.
Okay,
I'll second that once it's been read.
all right.
Can I read the motion and then somebody can read can we do it the other way around? Okay. So the motion that we're talking about is that the resolution related to the Facility Master Planning Task Force recommendations pertaining community impact of repurposing schools to 4K8 facilities and proposed school boundary changes as currently presented be approved.
Can we get a second?
It's already seconded, so I
Oh,
just
Oh, okay,
reread the motion.
all right. Okay, so let's,
No, she's gonna read it now.
oh, sorry,
She just
go
wanted
ahead.
to Reverse it.
All right,
Which-
sorry.
Which whereas am I starting with?
Sixth one.
Oh, that's easy for you to say. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Whereas the Facilities Master Planning Committee proposal to
Lynn,
transition.
can you go a little closer to your microphone? Thank you.
Whereas the Facility Master Planning Committee proposal to transition Langlade Elementary School, McAuliffe Elementary School, and Franklin Middle School to buildings for grades 4K to 8 creates a need to significantly alter current boundaries across the district. And whereas the impacts of such proposal to communities, educational pathways, transportation, and student safety of the potential boundary changes have not yet been studied, And whereas the Board of Education has not been provided with sufficient information to determine if these proposed changes meet the criteria established in board guidance as it pertains to equitable distribution of investments and minimizing changes to students, families, and district operations. And whereas the Facilities Master Planning Task Force did not have the means or necessary data to evolve their proposed changes to ensure alignment with the district's commitment to equity, and whereas the proposal to transition these schools to 4K to 8 facilities significantly alters the impact of schools' populations and therefore their opportunities to continue in their desired educational pathway. Now therefore be it resolved that the Green Bay Area Public School District is directed to initiate the necessary activities to assess the impact to community educational pathways and student safety of the proposed transition of Langlade Elementary School, McAuliffe Elementary School, and Franklin Middle School to 4K8 facilities, including all related investments and closings that enable the transition. The goal of the assessment should ensure that A, the comprehensive set of investments and divestments across the various communities are equitable. B, the boundary revisions associated with the proposed transition to 4K8 facilities minimize change for students, families, and district operations when possible. C, all board-approved educational pathways remain intact. D, the resulting school populations are equally or more diversely integrated than present populations. And E, transportation services are not negatively impacted. The assessment activities should include, but are not limited to, A, engaging a reputable third party to study the community impact of the school closures and the subsequent relocation of student populations proposed by the Facility Master Plan Task Force. B, organizing a task force representative of the impacted communities to evaluate the impact study and use findings to evolve the task force recommendations and adjust boundaries. And C, propose alternative locations for 4K to 8 facility investment, for example, Webster Elementary, Washington Middle School. D, creating a transition plan for students impacted by changes to educational pathways. E, propose locations that can be repurposed to offer services to students with disabilities who utilize the Common Core essential elements. Recommendations from the Facility Master Plan Task Force impacted by the transition to 4K to 8 schools and subject to the aforementioned assessments include closure of Elmore Elementary School, closure of Beaumont Elementary School, closure of Doty Elementary School, closure of Washington Middle School, modification of McAuliffe Elementary School, modification of Langlade Elementary School, modification of Webster Elementary School, closure of Leonardo da Vinci School, all associated boundary changes that redirect students to new schools based on the closures and modifications above, all associated boundary changes that shift high school students west.
Ryan.
So I stress as we're going through this and having the ability to see it in front of us as board members, this does not say that we are voting to close it, but it's also not saying that we are voting to keep it open. We are voting to study it, which is what we have heard and we recognize as well with it. Looking at one of the comments above it with the Facilities Master Plan Task Force did not have the means or necessary data to evolve their proposed changes. I don't necessarily see a need to change that, but I want to remind the board that was not their charge.
Right.
So the charge that they were provided or tasked to do was to look at the brick and mortar part of the school, so of the district. So when we look at this, we want, I personally, and I assume the rest of the board want to recognize the work that the task force committee put into it. I understand the intent of the means or necessary data. I just want to make sure that's clear that they accomplished their charge that we asked them to do. And there's a lot of community members that volunteered their time to do that. And I look forward to community members volunteering in our establishment of a task force and whatever we need to do for the second part of this. But the community members that spent their time, including our students sitting at the table, did what we asked them to do.
Thank you. Andrew.
I would agree with that. I also want to make sure, and I don't know how we can wordsmith this tonight, but if it doesn't happen, I'm gonna have a lot to say about it when it does happen. There is something, when we're looking to actually talk to stakeholders now, the people who will be affected, this is not going, there might be a different look with certainly some of the same people from the committee, quite possibly, but it's important, in my individual opinion, as an independent elected official, it is important that we include, right, it's not only about what percent of this group and what percent of this group, but we'll need to include not just safer voices. I mean, this is a committee, there will be some, I imagine this committee will probably have a bit more, the content may go in a bit more emotional direction sometimes because we're talking about stakeholders, some of whom may have stakeholding interests that butt up against each other's.
First of all, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by safer. Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Recognizing that the task force was appointed, we know that we have areas to improve on that as a board and making sure that we can come up with a policy. And while it wouldn't be directly tied into the motion, I would hope that we can instruct or make sure that we have a policy established soon on our task force recommendations and how they're tied in. The good thing about this is that we have involved citizens on this and involved constituents and family members on this. And luckily, the work of a school district continues on, and making those connections only in time of crisis is not the best method. And we recognize that as a board, as an individual board member, I recognize that and have had those communications with other people as well. We need to continue those conversations with a lot of the stuff, but we also need people to come up and volunteer and let us know that as well. So with the motion, I'm hoping I'm kind of addressing what you're saying, Andrew. I think we need to make, as a separate thing, establish this and a charge to come up with a policy as far as our task force and other policy recommendations, but it's not directly with that.
I think it's really important to recognize that a task force needs to be a larger representation of our district. Everybody who lives in our district, whether they have children in the schools or not, is invested in that, in our public schools, and has a stake in the success of our schools. So, I mean, the other task force had that approach, the kind of a larger, imagining of what our district is. This one can do the same, I think. So I recognize what you're asking, and I'm sure that we'll be able to accomplish that. So go ahead, James.
Following up, I think the board, I think this time, especially because it's probably going to happen before we could have a formal policy read out. I think the board will have to receive, and I think the board this time needs to have a ratifying vote on the membership of the committee. That's then, and only then board members have nothing to complain about later. I also think that there must be a clear pathway for people in the community to put their name out there and volunteer, which has been most of the time has happened in the past. I think those two things are important. If I have to make a motion to do that, I will, but I think they can just be hopefully they can just be a given here, and unless and until we would have a policy that would say that. But this new task force would need to start soon.
James.
We kind of washed over this and we read it, and just want to make clear that unlike all of the other resolutions offered tonight, this one does not have a on or by date, because I have absolutely no idea how long it will take to do this, right? And it is not the first referendum question, because I have absolutely no idea how long it's going to take to do this, right? So, ultimately, that gives us some space, and it's easy to say representative body making decisions, but I think everyone recognizes, and you point out, it's very difficult actually to execute that work, and we need to give it the time and space necessary to be effective, right? So ultimately, this is something that will have to be monitored and reported on and governed, but there is no do this by January of 2024. It's do this right, make sure that we get the necessary inputs and that we have the latitude to evaluate alternative proposals.
Brian,
Two parts with this, and if someone wants to speak in between, please let me know. With our other date, with our other resolution being passed, with looking at dates to propose referendums, does that create a natural deadline for this one to happen?
So looking at our timeline and looking at how long it takes to go to referendum, and after we go to referendum, engage in the necessary studies and design activities, we're talking about this work not being able to impact the immediate deficit issue, right? That's the immediate closings that are recommended that we take, actions to plan those. And the first referendum question where we can start the consolidation on the west side. But as you start stepping through that timeline, this is doing, I think, what you suggested earlier, taking this moment in time that doesn't come along every, couple of years to do a master facility plan that meets the community need.
Brian,
A follow-up with that. I'm not sure if I was clear on my phrasing of it. In particular, if we're looking at the items I had spoken with, the alternative locations for 4K through 8 facility investment and other programming with that. And I'm going to kind of go through the chair, and I may have to ask you, Josh, on this, or Melissa, I don't know. If we are looking at a referendum question, or the first part we went through, and now we've added things, but we don't have a deadline on. Am I kind of making?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, maybe there was a misunderstanding and we were talking past each other. I was not considering that proposal for a referendum question. I was considering that, and we were writing it into the assessment associated with the larger scale changes on the east side. So if your intention was to do that study and have outside of the other components of that assessment, that's not what we did tonight. And I apologize if we talked past each other. This would be something that we studied right along with equity, right along with transportation, right along with all of the other components of that. And then it would be potentially part of a second referendum question, not targeting April of 2024.
So I'm going to answer your other question with respect to the makeup of the facility task force and the potential policy. But I'm going to answer them both with this. Both of these motions have a considerable number of steps that the administration is going to have to map out and chart. What I would suggest is with respect to how to plan for who would make up the next task forces, as well as implementing what you have in here. I don't want to speak for Josh, but that we would come back at a meeting in the near future with all of this mapped out with respect to timelines, getting at your question about the referendum, and then whether these pieces feed into those referendum questions. And then if we need to make the necessary modifications to these motions at that time, based on the feedback of the district administration with respect to timeline, we could do so at that point.
so to shorten that up, you're basically waiting for direction from the board.
If you pass this motion along with the other motion, we will then come back with exactly what Brian is asking for with respect to what does this then look like as far as implementation and how to effectuate what you've just passed tonight.
Brian,
Do we need to have either a separate resolution or a motion to come up with a policy for general task force makeup and selection, or would that, you've got the directive through what we've discussed on this?
when you were looking at me, I was putting it on my to-do list. So I already have it on my to-do list.
I don't think that can be decided tonight,
Yeah.
but soon, very soon.
I think the directive of it can be decided, but if it doesn't need to be passed as a resolution and we've got the intent of that, I'm satisfied with that.
Okay, very good.
We won't do it task force unless we have it.
Okay,
So is this assumed direction includes then that the board would vote on the membership list and it would be open, that there would be a place that the general public could submit their name for consideration? Is that all, a minimum of that assumed here?
I honestly don't know. I haven't. If anyone wants to chime in here.
I envision that as coming through as as a policy, something coming from Melissa and our team soon on the makeup of that. And if it's introduced as a board policy, that comes in. I think you've expressed your desire to make sure it's approved by the board. I would imagine that'll be discussed when the policy comes up. Oh, sorry, Andrew.
Go ahead, Laura.
I was under the impression there would be a policy created, but we would also, prior to the policy, because it takes a little bit of time, we would go through and come up with some of the things Andrew recommended in creating the task force and based on the feedback and considering that all voices of the community are have the opportunity to participate. But I see that as, that may happen for this one, and then the policy would be created for future task force. Okay, got it.
Andrew.
So do I have to move an amendment that says the board will approve the list of the task force?
What was just stated is that it'll be put into the policy and then put into the operational part, is my understanding.
So no. Okay. All right.
Okay. Are there any other aspects to this resolution that you would like to discuss? All right. I think then that we can go ahead and take a vote, Kinsey.
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. All right, moving on. I don't have any. Yeah, we have two more resolutions here, so, and in some ways, these will be much harder, so so, go ahead, Brian.
Andrew, has your resolutions been addressed as well, or do we want to take care of that one?
I think the issue of DOB is thoroughly now included in another resolution that passed. If there's an understanding that this, if there's an understanding that new ideas are open and we are posted for action, even at times that we might not traditionally be posted for action, which is not all that important. For example, here we have we used to never put action in a special or almost no action. Now we did. Or we would have a special for voting and then so I scratched that. I kind of jumbled that, but we did, as long as we have access to that, I think I do want to make a motion about exploring the idea of putting some, seeing if we can have some childcare places if, with working with our community partners, because that I think is a community win-win. I think there should be options for looking at, as Brian been talking about, if, is there a point where we more specifically insert a directive for the administration to do a community schools model? I think that always needs to be open and on the table. But I think I don't think I have to do the others right now if I know that the discussion is ongoing.
Brian? Okay. So this isn't a new idea. I know that on my time on the board, this has come up before. I don't, Melissa, would you be willing to come to the table and talk? I'm sorry, talk about why this is problematic?
So I never want to say never. We have explored this. The amount of childcare regulations with respect to a licensed childcare provider made it very difficult, next to impossible, to do this in our schools. Not saying it can't be done, but at the time, based on what the capacity of the district and what the priorities of the district were, we did not move forward. We can go back and look at it and see if, again, we could explore something like this, but childcare is very heavily regulated. And in order to do so, for example, the YMCA and the YWCA have after school, I think just the YMCA has after school and before school programs. It's very limited as to the ages with respect to those before school and after school programs, and then all of the regulations that then go into those particular ages. So we would have to look into that, not saying it can't be done, but at the time we looked into it, it wasn't feasible.
Correct me if I'm wrong, there was also some pretty substantial limitations around like insurance and things like that.
That's the other issue our liability carrier was not excited about.
Is there any reason to think that's changed? Is over time?
I don't want to say yes and I don't want to say no.
Okay,
It's whatever your priorities are. These two motions you just passed have a lot for us to do.
Mhm.
So if childcare is the board's priority, then that's your priority and we'll do it. You just have to let us know what your priorities are.
Hang on just a second, Brian.
I just want to be clear, that was never my intent to be addressed tonight. And, it's one of those passing ideas with it that I had no expectation of any resources being spent on it at this time. I mean, I recognize we have a lot on our plate, so more of just a abstract idea with it. And I don't know if Andrew's on the same page or not, so.
I personally think it's a great idea if we can make it work. The need is in our community is huge. I don't know its feasibility and I don't know how much time right now we should be spending on that exploration with all these other things. Andrew.
Well, what I'm interested in is if we if we have, again, let's look at maybe some building that's on the bubble of maybe having to close, maybe not having to close. We'd maybe like to keep one of them a neighborhood school. And now we are renting space to a community partner. And now we have income coming into that building that allows us to keep that school that was on the bubble open as a neighborhood school and provide a necessary service that is a win-win for the community. What I would want us to do at that point, if we see that good opportunity, is to take it and to not be dictated to by insurance. And so I don't want to make that motion yet today, but if I have to make the motion to make a point because otherwise it'll just get washed away, then I won't do it, but I would rather do it in a more organized way. So if I know that there's going to be open for action ongoing, then I would rather take more time to develop it, but I had to be prepared to say something if it was a tonight or never situation, which I'm thinking it's probably not.
No, it's not tonight or never. So again, I have very positive feelings about this proposal, but it
We
has
have
to
to be willing
be.
to fight them. We have to be willing to fight against people who try to tell us no. We have to push, we have to fight.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right, so,
Yeah, we don't have a
yeah,
motion.
we don't have a motion.
Make a motion if we.
Andrew, are you willing to let that go for now?
Oh, yeah, I know
Okay.
my whole point was, I was trying to let it go for now.
All right,
I just needed to have some understanding that in leaving it go for now, I wasn't backdoor dropping it forever.
all right, very good. Let's move on then.
on that same thing, Andrew, with it, because we don't have a motion right now. Speaking of this is our opportunity for generational change and things that we mentioned before. This also is an opportunity to look at start times. This is an opportunity to look at other things, how once we get the first part of the puzzle solved, then I anticipate we'll still have those options and things as they come up. So.
Okay. All right. How about if we move on to the motion regarding Weequahic? Oh, it's already been read into the record. So let's talk about any.
She needs to.
Oh,
I need someone to make that motion.
I move to accept the resolution related to the Facility Master Planning Task Force recommendations pertaining to Weequahic Elementary School be approved as it is.
I'll second it, but I do have an amendment to offer.
Okay. Go ahead, Lynn.
I have to, it's been a while now since we've looked at this and I have to figure out where I want to put it. At the end where we say, let's see. Okay, it says, be resolved, the Green Bay Area Public School District is directed to initiate planning activities to effectuate the closing of Weequahic Elementary School, relocate that student population to Red Smith Community School 4K8, and explore the viability of moving the environmental programming to Red Smith Community School, et cetera, et cetera. Somewhere in there, I would like to spell out that we're directing the staff to negotiate with the city of Green Bay about the use of the public space adjacent to Red Smith School. Because I believe it is park property. And I think that forest might be part of city property. And we want to make sure that that is looked at so that the environmental program I'm sure that it can use that public space, but I think that should be part of the plan so that people can be confident that we're doing everything we can to make this environmental studies program available to as many students as possible. So can we put that in somewhere as a directive?
Brian.
Throughout this was brought up earlier, and I'm going to assume Josh will correct me if I'm wrong on this. We have agreements with the city through a lot of the parks in the neighborhoods, and I don't know, Josh, if it's a specific thing, but I believe that Red Smith already utilizes the park for football games and for different sporting events, and that we have agreements in place. So I don't know. I understand the gist of what you're saying. I don't know if it would be necessarily in this resolution because we already have understandings and agreements throughout the city as far as use of park space.
I'm sorry. Are you referring to those woods that are right next to the Red Smith?
Yes, I am. I
Oh.
have looked into that. I actually finally went and saw Weequahic School and Red Smith School over the weekend. And I did check with someone associated with Red Smith School as to whether that is available space for children. And I was told that the students can use it, but I just want to, and there's not a lot of school space available. Most of that space is Red Smith Park. And I just want the people, the parents of Weequahic School to know that we have covered all bases to ensure that this program can be successfully moved. That's the important thing to me, that we really don't take anything for granted.
Okay. Can we wordsmith that into the resolution?
Yeah.
Okay. To partner with the city for potential usage, maybe Josh, I don't know.
I have some more technical questions for Josh, maybe while James is wordsmithing it.
Josh? Okay.
Hello, so Josh, so right now, how many students are at Weequahic and what is the approximate cost per student, which, actually, let me just back, how many students are in Weequahic today?
Pulling it up right now. 114 today.
Okay, if all of the, it's, as we talk about capacity, but realistically, realistically, the school would be full at one class of each grade, right? I mean, because you don't really have something to do with 26 extra kids because it would, I mean, it might be over full a little bit in that case, but essentially, so rough, let's just use 150.
Yeah, I think our internal projections have it at 165 as the maximum capacity.
But that would. Okay, 27 and a half per, okay, so 165. So there's a couple things that make Weequahic, there's a few things that make Weequahic expensive, one per student, one of them being that there's 114 students in it instead of 160. If there were 160 students in it, theoretically speaking, at least, that should just mean that the classrooms would be more full. You wouldn't have an extra administrator, you wouldn't have an extra school secretary, et cetera. So what I'm trying to figure out is if we were to get, Weequahic, you know, it does have some unique aspects. It does cover that far northeast corner territory. It also is something we certainly can't run at 114. I'm just trying to figure out what is the actual dollars saved by, like, what dollars, how many dollars come off the table if Weequahic is closed, which I would assume would be some amount of custodial staff who would presumably probably be able to find work in the district, some support staff, but the 160 kids would still need generally the same, that's not really a saving. So what is the actual savings if Weequahic closes, like the dollar cost?
A little bit depends on the instructions from the board on how we go about closing. I can tell you, the annual ESSA report provides the amount of money it costs per student per facility. Weequahic was among the highest at around 15,000 per student. You look at another larger school over there on the east side, like Baird, for example, is at about 10,000 per student. You're correct. Those students have to go somewhere, and in a lot of cases, the teachers need to go with. Obviously, you're saving on utilities and maintenance and custodial staff, secretaries. We don't have any food service staff out there. You're right. We want an administrator. You know, those certain kind of fixed costs for a building.
So that to me is the really important thing. If I'm going to vote to close Weequahic, I need to know what we're really saving. If I take 15,000 times 114 students and divide it by 160 students, now we're not that far off of $10,000. If Weequahic were full, and it's not full, which that's a problem. But I don't know how big of a problem the finances are if Weequahic is full. That's why I need to know, you know, what's involved there. So it's average utilities and maintenance plus some staff. And I think if we don't, I think we should be able to vote on something like this, knowing what the answer to the question is. And if it's not ready tonight, maybe we don't vote on this one tonight. And I would probably feel the same about tank, but I need to know what, for me to vote yes, I would need to know what is being what is being saved so that I could either say, yes, we should close it, or maybe we shouldn't close it, but if only if we could find it to a way to get it full. Or that's where I'm at.
James?
You know, I struggle with this one, right, Andrew, and I hear what you're saying. And I've spoken to, a parent at Wake Creek who's very passionate about keeping open, and I admire that. The problem I have is in our timeframe, the pathway to full is unknown. And if we leave tonight and say we need more answers before we take any action, then the only two items that will actually impact our ability to close the gap between where we are and where we need to be in the 24 school year, we've taken off the table and we punt. So I don't know the answer to your question, but I'm more confident that students are just not going to materialize, that this is not a 22, 23 problem, but it's been a consistent problem over the last several years in advance of COVID. So absent a concrete plan to change that status quo, I don't know what I'm going to be able to use to inform me of a different decision in a month. So if it's not in a month, then we start going, okay, how are we going to prepare and make the necessary plans to effectuate closure if we don't direct the district? So this is a proposal to do the planning to effectuate closure. It's not to close the school. But if we leave here tonight and not even direct them to start, then I don't know what in August, we're going to know that's concrete. Now there can be projections and plans, but we've identified that there's been proposals around external dollars and changing the nature of the school to a charter program. And those are all great ideas that take time, right? So if we're going to do anything at all that's fiscally responsible to our, deficit obligations, all we've done tonight is ask the community for more money and study something that we think is going to take more than a year to accomplish. That's going to lead to another ask for money. So if what we leave here tonight with are those two decisions, I will not feel like I've done my duty.
Andrew?
So I get it, but we would be voting tonight without knowing what the potential savings are and what would happen. We know it would be non-zero, right? I'll give you that. There would be some non-zero amount of money would be saved by just putting all the Wequiak kids into Red Smith. Yes, there would be some money saved. Would it be enough money to be worth what we lose? That's what I don't know. I mean, now this isn't the case. If you told me it was going to save, $4 million, which is ridiculous, it wouldn't, then I might have to tell the Wequiak folks, hey, sorry, look, this is, 50 teachers we could, keep or something, which obviously it's not going to be that big. I don't want to vote on something that's going to be trivial. If the savings are going to be trivial, and especially if this is something where, people might make other decisions about where to go because of losing Wequiak, then we're saving even less. And so that's why I would feel better waiting on this until we could see if there's a way to get it more full. You could move, there are ways that you could be relatively sure that it was full too, but
I did do some initial figures based on the maintenance and the utility costs. at buildings along with kind of mapping out how the sections align and where the duplicative services are. It was looking to be like about 100 or 720,000 annually.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
The consolidation of Weequahic into Red Smith.
Okay, that's consolidating Weequahic of its current size into Red Smith would save that much.
That's per year going forward. Every single year you're saving that by not having that school open.
So a small amount of that being, I would assume the smaller part of that would be the staff here because it should only be 2 positions and then most of it would be utilities and upkeep.
Well, there are other efficiencies related to staffing. You have some duplicative services, but you have teachers traveling. You've got, some potential with some of these section sizes are very small. So when you're being absorbed into a larger system like Red Smith, it's possible that one section from Weequahic can be absorbed without adding an additional section at Red Smith. So that's kind of the way I looked at it based on current class sizes.
Laura?
Was there I recall reading something or hearing something related to if Weequahic were at full capacity, there were certain issues or concerns regarded to the building that had to be repaired, or am I thinking of a different school like boiler or sewer or something?
Well, I mean, all those things need to get repaired eventually, but Weequahic is unique. And it can't get bigger than 160, right? Because it's on septic, it's on a well, those sorts of things. So it's very much a rural school that you could fill it up, but it can't grow past that 160, and it's going to be really tight at 160. That's going to feel. It would not be a nice environment at 160, I don't think.
Brian?
I appreciate Andrew's concern and have been thinking with this. I also went out to Weequahic, took a tour of it with staff members, showed me around, and appreciate the beauty of it. It's tough to justify keeping a school open with 125 students. And I don't want to make that, no one wants to see a school close. It's tough to justify with 125 students.
I've been to Weequahic many times over the years. You're right. It's a wonderful school. It's very hard to talk about closing it. Lynn?
I have just a couple very kind of silly questions. Do we pay insurance on buildings that, so if for every building that we close, we are not paying to insure that building?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Lynn. There are a number of costs associated with having a building open that are necessarily charged in the books to the building. A lot of times that gets actually charged down to district office, right? Because the district's paying for it, like the case of an insurance policy. But really, yeah, you are paying a premium on that property for property insurance, and there is a replacement value associated with that and a premium that goes along with that.
And also, do we transport food from Bellevue, from that ABS building to all of the schools, including Weequahic?
Oh, ASB. Yes, yeah, we do. But reminder, Fund 50, just the way it's set up, that is self-sustaining, right? It runs like a business. So that does not impact our long-term structural deficit in our general fund.
I think Brian was first, then Andrew.
Is the cost of transportation considered with that student cost?
I did not do a cost analysis on the cost of, so yeah, the per student cost that I quoted from the ESSA report includes transportation, if that's your question. Okay, I didn't do anything on the delta between busing to Wequiak versus busing those same kids to Red Smith.
Andrew,
So I don't know if this would work or not. But we seem to have a lot of people in the community coming to us and saying, if Wequiak was better known, if the unique features and environment of Wequiak were better known, people would come. And I don't know if they would or if they wouldn't. And if Wequiak was sitting here on June 5th, 2024, and with a year to, with a whole time to see if there, it could be marketed better, word of mouth could spread about this hidden gem, and it could be running at a better percentage, then I would be in the place of closing it. But I think I give some credibility to maybe not enough has been tried there to see if we could get it full, if we could get some voluntary movement.
Brian.
I understand your point there, Andrew. With all of these schools, we've looked at data that we've been provided with it. And I get the intent of if we could promote it more, if we could do that with 42 schools. If we could, and Wequiak is a unique spot, but we can't go, when I ref football, we can't rule on intent. It's what is there right now.
All right.
Does it need to be read? We modified it, so I think I should read it again, if that's the case.
Please.
Board resolution related to the Facility Master Planning Task Force recommendations pertaining to Wequiak Elementary School. Whereas Wequiak Elementary School continues to operate at or about 60% capacity. And whereas the environmental education programming may be transferable to Red Smith Community School 4K through 8 for grades 4K through 5. And whereas Wequiak Elementary School's location requires all students be transported to school. Thus, relocation of the student population to Red Smith Community School 4K through 8 minimizes change to the impacted community. And whereas Wequiak Elementary School feeds into Red Smith Community School for grades 6 through 8. And whereas the entirety of the student population of Wequiak Elementary School can be relocated to Red Smith Community School without modification. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Green Bay Area Public School District is directed to initiate planning activities to effectuate the closing of Wequiak Elementary School, relocate the student population to Red Smith Community School, and explore the viability of moving the environmental program to Red Smith Community School for grades 4K through 5 for the 2024-2025 school year, and present the plan for board approval on or before 11/1/2023. Revising transportation plans to ensure safe and timely transit to and from school for all students by bus, documenting the necessary boundary changes, determining the feasibility of providing equivalent environmental education programming at Red Smith Community School, creating a detailed list of non-referendum dependent projects and their capital requirements to address fiscal plant and educational adequacy concerns at Red Smith Community School, and documenting the necessary agreements with the City of Green Bay to ensure that students at Red Smith Community School can use the adjacent Red Smith City Park for educational purposes.
Any further discussion? We're ready for a vote. Kinsey,
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion has carried. The results of the individual board member votes are as follows. Becker, no. McCoy, yes. Leighton and Warren, yes. Welch, yes. Lyerly, yes. Mills, yes. Gerlach, yes.
Motion passes. All right, let's move on to the resolution about tank. It's been read into the record already. Are there any requests for modification? Go ahead.
I'm worried about the actual size of the classrooms and how many classrooms are used for special programming already. I don't know if there's enough room to have all of Tank go over there and make it a really nice community place.
I don't know. Can someone speak to that as far as space?
We would have to look at programming for sure, Nancy. You are correct. There are special programs over there right now. Mhm. Josh and I went over and took a look late last week. Josh, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, just for some context, if we look at the projected enrollment at Fort, in the timeframe that we're talking, it's 229 kids, Tank 114, that's a total of 343. Back in 14-15, Fort Howard on its own had an enrollment of 403 students. So what's that?
2015?
Yeah, 2014, 2015, yes. So they had 403 students that year, 396 the following, 357 in 16, 17. So it certainly has been that big in the past, but you're correct. When Vicki and I went and toured that, there are, gosh, probably like 5 classrooms that exist as places for program delivery versus being, regular ed classrooms.
And I do realize that, this happens sometimes, but I think it happens more than one time there where like 2 specialties are already sharing a classroom. And then I heard that there was going to be another special class. I thought it was another, can't remember. That was just already okayed. So I don't know. And the sizes of the rooms too, I heard like on 3rd floor, those rooms are smaller or something. Yeah.
They're about 700 square feet a piece on that 3rd floor.
What's a normal?
Bigger. Yeah, I mean, ideally you want to be north of 1,000 square feet on a classroom. If you're building it from scratch, that's how you build it.
Go ahead, Andrew. I'll make it another 10. Go ahead.
Yeah, again, for me, when it comes, I have to be absolutely sure if it comes to closing and building. Now tank's capacity is low, but I guess I need to know. I either need to know for sure tonight or not vote tonight, or I have to vote no tonight, right? So I guess this is one where I would maybe be interested if there are some unanswered questions related either to whether they truly fit and whether that's truly a comfortable fit, and or if there's anything we need to look at before doing something with Tank regarding equity needs and assuring the safety of transportation. Maybe we wait a month on this one.
James?
So Nancy, the resolution that we're talking about now was premised on the fact that they fit. Right. So if we have information now that, you know, establishes that this no longer makes sense, right? And that we need more time, I agree with Andrew that the intent was not to force and create an environment that was not educationally adequate, right? So if we do need to direct the district to make sure that we have the necessary information to affect this change, I am absolutely open to that. And I think that's responsible, because the alternative would be to split this population. And some of that is trying to avoid anything that splits populations and make boundary decisions without some sort of equity study, right? And making sure that those are appropriate. So if we don't have the necessary information to make sure that number one thing, population A fits within school B, we can table.
I would like to add a, maybe, E, another, item, if possible. I would be interested in exploring whether or not, Fort Howard could be, if we could explore Fort Howard with the additional population from Tank. If we could explore it becoming a neighborhood school. I'm sorry, community school, sorry, it's late and I'm tired, but, a neighborhood school and everything that goes with that. And for people who might be watching, at home or in the room, is there someone who can give kind of a explanation of what? Please, Brian, would you please help us?
Community schools are set up based on, and this is a national movement, it's a very specific definition of community schools, and there's different pillars that are based on it, but it's meeting the needs of the community and it's driven by the community itself. So I've spoken before of the community school models. Some schools may find a need for a dental clinic to be there, or if the community finds a need for mental health services, and it's based on that model, and then working within the larger community to make sure that those services are being met. So if you Google community school model, there's a lot of information on it that does much more than me saying this at 8:25 at night, but it's a national model that it's very specific on their goals. Aldo is set up as a community school, and How is set up as a community school. So there's different resources and opportunities for it. And they're beneficial, but it takes a lot of work both on the staff and the community itself to make sure those needs are being met.
And I understand, offering this as an idea, it's expensive. But I would like to give it some consideration for Fort Howard, moving forward with this new population if this motion passes tonight. So go ahead, Laura.
Regarding Tank, I had a former teacher within the district ask me about busing students from Tank for bilingual education, and if any of that would affect the numbers and how that plays into the larger scenario. I wasn't able to answer. Just curious.
Yeah. Go ahead, Vicky.
We're required to provide the bilingual programming and have difficulty staffing. So 1 or 2 years ago, we had to start busing the students from Tank over to Sullivan so that the students were exposed to that curriculum.
There are 11 students currently are bused from the Tank attendance area over to Sullivan for bilingual services.
So they're not there partial for part of the day, they're there as students all day. Yeah, okay, they're Sullivan students, all right. Go ahead, Brian.
Just for some more information on your question about the community school model, the communityschools.futureforlearning.org has the 4 pillars, and just to share them, the first one is an integrated student supports. The second pillar is expand and enrich learning time and opportunities. Third pillar is active family and community engagement. And the fourth one is collaborative leadership and practices. So it really looks at the full running of a building and making sure that the community is involved with that.
I also, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of grant funding out there, but you have to apply for it and then receive it in order for you to be able to sustain programming like that, which is risky in itself, but for that particular school with that new population, it feels like that might be worth looking into. That's all. That's my idea. Go ahead, Lynn.
Nancy seemed to be suggesting that there might be a problem if we put Tank and Fort Howard together. So many services have to be provided. Am I understanding that correctly, Nancy?
Presently, they have a real high population that is being served by many different programs.
So what I'm wondering is if there's a staff member present tonight who could talk to us about that, about, the services being offered at Tank and Fort Howard and what it might look like if we put that all together in one building, and does the staff have confidence that that would work?
Anybody?
We put everything together, does everything fit agreement?
So Claudia, are you? Yeah, I think it is. Are you asking about the specialty programs?
Yeah, Tank has just cross-cat, special education. And Fort Howard has an ID autism class and a straight up ID class and a cross-cat.
Okay.
All of the schools, they do not have an OT or PT that is situated there. They have OTs and PTs that come and go throughout the day.
If we were to
Or the
combine
week.
those, if we were to combine those populations, could we then maybe justify having a full-time person there?
I would have to look at the numbers to say that, but they would get a lot more time with an occupational therapist or a physical therapist. For the self-regulation for the students on the spectrum, and then for fine motor skills, and that for the students with the intellectual disabilities, yes. And some of their cross-cat kids in both schools have occupational therapy needs as well. The other thing is we don't have EL at Tank any longer. So any student that is still at Tank is, or bilingual, excuse me, not EL, is served by EL, which is minimal amounts of time. The parents wanted them to stay at that school, so they chose not to get bilingual, which is their right as a parent. And those are the services that we have at both schools. Oh, yeah, I did forget Fort has a behavior focus too. That is correct.
Okay. Go ahead, Nancy.
I heard this, but it may not be true, that there was going to be another cross-cat position at Fort Howard.
Cross-cat is based on the number of kids that are in that school. By every single year it changes, and sometimes between Fort and Tank, they usually have a 0.5. Each of them have 0.5s, which this would probably allow them to, so it changes, it fluctuates every single year with the movement, but it would allow them, if we had schools that were larger populations of schools, it would allow staff not to be 0.5 here and 0.5 there.
James.
So Josh, hearing all of this, are you confident tonight that we could relocate a Tank population to Fort Howard, given the services that are provided at Fort Howard? So what I think I heard was back the last time Fort Howard was operating at near 400 students, some of those services were not being provided, right? And they take up space and they have special classroom requirements. So if you're not confident tonight to say, yes, we can get A and B and it's still educationally adequate, how long would you need in order to come up with some information that we could use to inform a vote?
I'm sitting here tonight, I'm not confident that that could happen without some kind of program consolidation. There's just more going on in Fort now than there was even 5 years ago. As far as how much time would be required, I think I need to look to Claudia probably for that because that's her staff providing those services and
Most, if not all of the students that are in the ID program and the ID autism focus program are not from that neighborhood. It's because we ended up having, the only places we could put any students with disabilities that needed special programs was at the West Side schools because they're the only schools that had space. So this is the very first year, and it was the middle of this year that we put the ID autism in. We currently don't even have a teacher. The teacher resigned and we're having one of our other staff cover in that classroom. If we were to move forward with consolidations, it would give us time to be looking at more not fiscally responsible, but more, could these kids stay in their actual neighborhood instead of having to be bused all the way to Fort? And I'm not saying that they live on the east side, but they could have even lived on the east side. There's just absolutely no space for us to add any programs on the east side.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry, I do know that I would be confident that they would have the space for the additional students because some of these our students could go into a smaller space too. We just try to keep them with their peers. So we try to keep the first and second graders with their first and second grade peers and whatnot. But if depending on how they make the building look, there would be space. And actually understand that being the fact that they are an AGR school, I think, Andrea, I'm speaking out of turn, but I think they only have 15 to 18 kids in a class.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hang on, just don't go anywhere quite yet. Andrew,
I move to table this resolution to the June 26th regular board meeting.
Second.
any discussion, any questions? I think we'll have to take a vote. Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried. The results of the individual board member votes are as follows. Becker, yes. McCoy, no. Leighton and Warren, yes. Welch, yes. Lyerly, yes. Mills, yes. Gerlach, yes.
Okay. Motion carries. I think, unless there's any other ideas, then we are finished for the night. Yeah, Nancy's have been covered, Andrew's been covered. Lynn,
Can somebody, and I don't know who it could be, just give us a kind of a feel for where we go next? What's, the schedule and what we're gonna do next so that we get things done in time? Does anybody have a handle on that?
I think that what we've instructed the staff to do with these resolutions tonight they'll be getting to work at getting at them starting tomorrow. And I would guess it won't be very long before we have some answers to that. But we need to give them some time to digest these documents and take on and assign work and And it might take a few days for us to have a better idea of what that means. So Brian,
We've been elected to do this job, and all of us ran for this position and we're elected to make these decisions as well. But I want to thank the staff that has spent the amount of hours and have possibly dealt with the concerns of people. And I can't express how thankful I am as a board member, and I'm guessing the rest of the board is, for the amount of time that our staff has put into this and continue to do so. And I am incredibly appreciative of the work that they are doing, and I'm certain that my fellow board members are. And I just want the public to recognize that our staff has been going above and beyond on all of these decisions to come up. So I just want to thank you all for that. So.
for a very sustained period of time as well. And I just, I've had a lot of people in the last few days reach out to me very kindly to acknowledge what you just said and to also just words of support, understanding that this is hard. It was always going to be hard. We all knew that. And I just have had a lot of very nice people let me know that they're thinking about these challenges, people who care deeply about their community and their school district. So I just want anyone who's listening that I really appreciate that. And then I appreciate my fellow board members as we guide our community and most specifically our children through these needed changes. None of us wanted to be here. None of us. And if you really want to point your energy and focus on making change in public education, because honestly, I'm a little bit tired of having to beg politicians to care about public education. And I've done it many times now over the last 6 years, sometimes right in this room. I'm a little bitter, if you can't tell, of how much energy goes into basically begging politicians to do the right thing by our students. So I guess that's pretty much all I have to say about that, but go ahead, Brian.
The amount of community engagement that's been spent on this has been beneficial. I mean, obviously, we have not seen eye to eye on a lot of things. I think everyone has been focused on what's best for children and what's best for our students. And that energy needs to be spent on fully funding public education in the state and the people that decide that funding balance, and making sure that our services are funded where they had promised, which goes to special education funding from the state and ELL services from the state, which would make up $20 to $30 million. And engagement with your state lawmakers, who are the ones who make that decision, is an ongoing thing. So we're all on the same page on that. And I'm hoping our community members recognize that is a main reason why we are in the situation where we are.
The seeds of how we got to this day were planted back in the 90s, and they're showing up now in ways that we, literally have no control over. So here we are doing these, horrible, having to make difficult decisions. So I'm going to stop now because I can barely talk about this without wanting, anyway, go ahead, Andrew.
Not to be a downer on top of that, but I'll add to the mix here that, if for people who might carry away from this conversation, well, yep, we need to get out there. We need to tell our elected officials that you better do things a little bit better for public education, or we're gonna vote you out. Okay, if you're thinking that, if you just look at how the maps in Wisconsin are drawn, aside from a massive national change of, I'm talking like historical sweep election, like we haven't seen in 50 or 70 years it would take to change many of these seats. So you need to study what's going on with maps, and we have to have fair maps in Wisconsin. Otherwise, a discussion about, hey, maybe we need to put pressure. Things are set up in such a way that people don't have to, both parties have mostly very protected seats, and that's something to think about. And I realize that's kind of deep in the weeds, but states where maps are drawn in such a way that most have to listen to the constituents and pay attention, things go differently there. So.
Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're adjourned.
You have been watching the Green Bay Area Public School District's Board of Education meeting. Please visit the school district's website, www.gbaps.org, to view the program again. If you cannot fully access the information on this video, please let us know the accessibility issue you are having by calling 920-448-2025 or by email at communications@gbaps.org. We will try to provide the information to you in an alternative format and/or make the necessary improvements to make the information accessible.